Bom dia a todos e Chodesh Tov, Agut Chodesh. Bem-vindos ao evento em honra do 70º ano da liderança do nosso Rebbe. Este dia, o dia de Rosh Chodesh, o dia que nos unimos ao pé do Monte Sinai, como uma pessoa só, como um coração só, fato que gerou então que Deus entregasse para nós a nossa Torá Sagrada. Estamos próximos da festa de Shavuot, da outorga da Torá, e temos a certeza que esta nossa união, com certeza, vai apressar cada vez mais a era tão esperada, a era messiânica, o legado que o Rebbe nos instruiu para poder trazer o quanto antes. Na programação de hoje, nós vamos dedicar a Torá, Tfilá e Tzedakah. Nós iniciaremos, obviamente, com um vídeo do Rebbe, pois sempre Potchim Bidvar Malchut. Depois nós recitaremos o Salmo 119. Depois nós sugerimos dar uma quantia para Tzedakah. Escutaremos as crianças do Anash do Brasil recitando os 12 psukim e assim faremos com ela. Rabino Simon Jacobson dirá umas palavras em homenagem à data de hoje, de Rosh Chodesh Sivan, e em seguida nós vamos viajar com ele para Gerações do Chassidismo. Rabino Alpern deixará uma mensagem em nome de todos os shluchim para todos nós. Mostraremos um vídeo muito alegre de uma melodia entoada em honra dos 70 anos do Rebbe, 11 de Nissan, 1972. 11 de Nissan, 1972. E depois a gente vai ter a honra de estar ao vivo com o Rabino Simon Jacobson, que vai responder as perguntas que serão feitas via chat através desse canal do YouTube.
Heintiger Tag ist auch verzeichnet bei Miuchot, bei Terasena Agdesha, Teras Emes und Teras Chaim, Ira Bachayim, Bachol Jem Vajem, verzeichnet aus Tera und in Anefen, als Egoloi, man darf nicht suchen, Kiramosin, was meint man dabei, und beloschen hat Tera, was Leitia Muchlefes, הבחידש השלישי, בצאת בני ישראל מארץ מצרים, בו מדבר סיני, und danach Echet, ויחן שם ישראל נגד ההור. הפונקט הזה וזה המוגפלת, die alle עניונים in ההור, oder נגד ההור וגפלת לישראל, אז זה חניה נגד ההור. Und das in sehr Peil gewesen, die Behauptung der Reache Komecha Mamash, bis Ardus Amitis.
Para recitar o Salmo do Rebbe, o Salmo 119, temos a honra de convidar o Rabino Hersh Leib Begum de São Paulo.
אשרי נויסרי דויסו בכל לב ידרשו אף לא יפועלו אף לא בדרוכו הלוכו התוציביסו פיקודךו לשמור מיועד החלה יקוינו דרוכוי נשמור חוקך עוז לא יבש בהביטי הכל מצווי שכו אויתך ביושר לבוב בלומדי משפטי צדקך אס חוקך אשמור אל תעזבני עד מיועד במזקן הרזן נשמע ברוך אתה אדוני למדני חוקך ומצוותיך בפיקודך בחוקיך אשתעשע לא ישכח דבריך גמול על עבדך אחיה וישמרו דבריך גם יושו סורים בי נתברך גם ידסך ששועי אנשי עצוסי דוב כל יופר נפשי חייני כדבריך. הריני הינוי דרך חוקיך אצרנו עקב. הנה תאהבתי לפי קודך, בצדקו זכור חייני. הדברו ודסך ונגמלה ולייבש. ואסלך ביל מצוותיך, אשר אהבתי ויוסיך בחוקיך, זכור דוב לעבדך על אשר הנגלתני. סבירות היו לי חוקיך בבייס מגורוי. זוי סולי כפי קודך נוצרתי, חלקי אדוני אמרתי לשמור דבריך. טוב לי תורס פיך מאלפי זהב וחוסף, יודך עשוני ויכוננוני אבינני לי. ועומד במצוותיך ירח ירון מזבח. יבוש יהי ליבי סומד בחוקיך למען לא יבוש כל של ישועתך נפשי לדברך יכולתי. כחסדך חייני וישמרו עדות פיך לעולם אדוני דברך ניצב בשמיים לדור ודור מנזר. לכל תכרע ריסי כס רחוב ומצוותך מיועד מואב תדרסך כל היום ישחוסי מיועד בית. מפיקודך ועזבנון על כן שנאי כל רשע קרנל לרגל דבריך מאור לנסיב עשי נשמת יקיים ולשמור. Nid me spirit say no, adoi no, mishpatecho lamdeinina. Atis libi lasses chukecho leolam meikev soi afim sonesi seiros ovti. Soma mi pardecho psori umimishpatecho yoresi asisi mishpat vatzedek al tanicheni lioshko yarui vavdecho letoiv al yashkun hizedim. Al kein kol fikudei choy lisharti kol irasheker sonesi plois eide voisecho al kenis arosam nafshi pesad varecho yoyni bem soyim. Varti veshanas. Biomayim. Bedoinim. Palgemayim yordueino yalu lo shamru serosecho tzadik ato adoino v'yoshor mishpatecho tzivisi tzedek. Tzarumotzek mitzouni mitzvaysecho shashuoi tzedek eit vaysecho liolam Avineni viechye korosi mechol leivaneni adinoi chukecho etzuiro. Danke. Kedem yodati meidoisecho kilioilam yisaditam. Reo nivechal senig seros oloi shochochti rivo rivi. Rabbi. Raisi boidim. Rei kim fikudecho afti ayeni rosh devorcho emes ולעולם כל משפט צדקך סורים רדפוני בורך פוחד ליבי סוסונך למרוסך כי מויצא שלל רב. סיברתי שמרו נפשי תסך שמרתי פיקודך ואידויסך ככל דרוכי נגדך תקרב רינוס לפונך אדוני כדבורך אבינני תבואי תכנוסי לפונך. ספסס אלוהים תן לי שוין המרוסך תאהבתי לשעוז תויסי כיסא אויבד, בקש עבדך, כי מצויסך, לא ישכחתי.
Iniciaremos agora a recitação dos 12 psukim com as crianças do Brasil. Para recitar o primeiro pasuk, temos a honra de convidar a Mussi, a Sara Endi, de São José dos Campos, com o pasuk Torá. Para recitar o Pasuk Shema, convidamos a Hana, a Chaya Mushka e a Neha Madina Rothenberg, de Brasília.
Shema! Israel! Adonai! Eloheinu! Adonai! Echad!
Para o terceiro Pasuk, convidamos o Chaim David Yona Reichman, de Manaus, com o Pasuk Bechol.
בכל דוד ודוד חייב אדם לירס אס עצמוי כאילו הוא יצא ממצרים.
Para o quarto Passuk, Kol Israel, convidamos a Múcia, a Hana, a Shendel e o Meir Kabachnik de Belém do Pará.
ישראל, יש להם חלק לעולם הבא שנאמר ויאמר כולם צדיקים לעולם ירשו הארץ נצא מתי מעשה ידי ישראל.
Para o quinto Passuk, Kikarov, convidamos a Dobi, a Hani Lapkovski de Curitiba. Aliás, grande Mazal Tov para Dobi, cujo aniversariante do dia de hoje.
כי קוראים אליך הדבר מאוד בפיך ובלבבך לעשוי.
Para o sexto Passuk, convidamos o Menachem Mendel Sigal do Rio de Janeiro com o Passuk Vehine Hashem.
והנה השם ניצב עליו ומלוא כל הארץ כבודו מביט עליו ובוחן כליות והלב עם עובדו כראוי.
Para o sétimo Passuk Bereshit, convidamos a Hana Bukiet de Salvador, Bahia.
Beoasis, Boa, Elohim, Eis, Hasamayim, Ve'eis, Ha'oret.
Para o oitavo Passuk Veshinantam, convidamos a Chaya Mushka e Sara Liberov de Porto Alegre.
Veshinanta, Veshinanta, Levanecha, Levanecha, Vedibata, Vedibata, Bom, Veshivtecha, Veshivtecha, Berisecha, Berisecha, Uvelachtecha, Uvelachtecha, Vaderech, Vaderech, Uveshachbecha, Uveshachbecha, Ofkumecha, Ofkumecha.
Para o Passuk Yagati, o nono, convidamos a Dvora e Sara Mizrahi de Recife.
יגעתי ולא מצאתי, אל תאמין. לא יגעתי ומצאתי, אל תאמין. יגעתי ומצאתי, תאמין.
Para o décimo Passuk Ve'ahavta, convidamos a Sara Mushka, director do Rio de Janeiro.
ואהבת לרעך כמוך. רבי עקיבא אומר, זה כלל גדול בתורה.
Para o 11º Passuk Vezekol, convidamos a família Sucar de São Paulo.
וזה כל אדם ותכלית בריאוסוי ובריאס כל העולמות עליונים ותחתונים לירויס לוי דירה זו ותחתונים.
Para o 12º Passuk, o último Passuk Ismar, convidamos o Mendi e Sholi Nurkin de São Paulo.
ישמח ישראל באוי סוף פירוש שכל מי שהוא מזרע ישראל יש לוי לשמוח בשמחת השם אשר שוש ושמח ודירוסוי בסחדונים.
Para falar Ad Matai e pedir para Hashem que nos manda a redenção de imediato, convidamos Yehuda Stroll de Belo Horizonte. Tfilá, já escutamos, sugerimos agora que cada um coloque uma quantia de dinheiro numa tzedakah pushker para cumprir a mitzvah de tzedakah. Gostaríamos de convidar o renomado rabino Simon Jacobson, autor do livro Rumo a uma Vida Significativa, para dirigir uma introdução à jornada que ele fará logo após, em honra da data de hoje, Rosh Chodesh Sivan. Rabino Jacobson.
A Freilichen Rosh Chodesh Sivan. Today is the new month, the new moon of the third month of the year. The way the Torah classifies the months is by numbers. The first month being the Chodesh Harishon, Nisan, the month of Geula, when the Jews left Egypt. The second month, Chodesh Hasheni, is Iyar. And now we enter the third month, Sivan, the month of Matan Torah. After 49 days of counting, the 50th day from when they left Egypt is the holiday of Shavuos, which will come in 6 and 7 days from now. But there's something very special about this new month. Every Rosh Chodesh is unique. The name Rosh Chodesh means the head of the month, not just the beginning, the head of the month. But Chodesh comes from the word chidush, renewal, like the renewal of the moon. Shehei masidin l'schadesh kamesa. The Jews are compared to the moon, so the new month, the new moon, reflects and manifests renewal every month. But Rosh Chodesh Sivan has something unique. We read in the Torah, in the book of Exodus, the book of Shemais, Pasha Yisrei, after the Jews left Egypt, 49 days later, 7 weeks later, 50 days later, was Matan Torah. But a few days before, Rosh Chodesh Sivan, B'Chodesh HaShlishi, B'Yom HaRishon, the first day of the third month, it says, Vayichan Yisrael Neged Ahor. The Jews resided, they rested across the mountain. Which mountain? Mount Sinai. The language is Vayichan, Vayichan Sham. Vayichan is in the singular. In Hebrew, it should have said Vayachnu. They rested, not just he rested. Vayichan would indicate one individual. Says the Medrash, and cited in Rashi. Vayichan Loshen Yachid. Why? Because they were Ki'ish Echad, B'Leiv Echad. Like one person with one heart. What was so special about that? Because there were so many different Jews of different persuasions and different opinions. As a matter of fact, the Medrash proceeds by saying that up till that point they were not agreeing about everything. But when they stood before the mountain, something happened. A cosmic, a collective unity. Not annihilating any individual. They all felt that they were in harmony, like one organism. One person, like one heart. And that was why it's so unique. This explains also why in the Seder, Pesach, we say, the Ilu, Kirvanu, if we only came close to Har Sinai, and you did not give us the Torah, Dayenu, that would be enough. Why would that be enough? Not receive the Torah. The whole point of coming to Sinai, to the Har Sinai, to the Mount Sinai, was to receive the Torah. One of the reasons is because the mere fact that they came before the mountain united them. They sensed their spiritual and transcendent destiny. So when individuals, no matter how many they are, no matter how many different opinions they are, yet when they sense their greater destiny, they sense they're all part of one team. They all complement each other. In this age of the pandemic, some call the age of Corona, which has affected all of us, all communities, from Israel to the United States, to Brazil, to Europe, to Australia, to South Africa, every continent where they're human beings. A total disruption. We have an opportunity to become closer and more united than ever. Yes. Because even though they tell us to be socially distant, physically distant is the way I would express it, but soulfully and spiritually, we're not distant. We actually experience even closeness, closer than we ever have been before. And you see this in different communities, us coming together right now. We most likely would not have come together in this form of a technology unity. But there's a deep unity because when we sense the vulnerability and our fragility and how the outer world is not there for us, it makes us feel more united. Ki'ish echad b'leiv echad. So this Rosh Chodesh Sivan, like no other year before it, we have an opportunity to connect and unite in deeper ways. And we all know that the greatest blessing of all is unity. Barchenu avinu kolonu echad. Kolonu echad. When we're united as one, God our Father blesses us. When a father sees his children are in harmony, loving each other, kind to each other, even if they're different, but respecting each other, it brings all the blessings. God looked for a blessing to contain, God looked for a container to contain his blessing. Loi motza kosh baruch hu keli machzik bracha, ella hashalom. We end the entire Talmud with that statement. That God did not find any other container, any other channel, any other vessel for his blessing, keli machzik bracha, ella hashalom. Shalom, peace, doesn't just mean absence of war. It means a wholesomeness, a connectedness. In the words of the Yerushalmi, we are all limbs of one organism. So it's inconceivable, but it makes sense that the right arm says, you know what, I don't like my left arm. If it doesn't like its left arm, it doesn't like itself. If you love yourself, you love others because we're all part of one organism. That's the meaning of V'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha. As Rabbi Akiva says, Zeh klal gadol b'Torah. Explains the Alter Rebbe in Perek Lev of Tanya. Perek Lamed Beis, Lev, pronounced as love. The heart of Torah, the love, Ava. Exactly that theme. How do you reach love? He says, if you make your body prominent and your soul secondary, bodies do not connect because physical entities are defined by their separation of time and space. But if you make nafshe ikar, you make your soul primary, and your body is just a vehicle, souls connect because they're not defined by time and space. We can be in two different seats. We can be in two different countries. We can be a million miles apart. But ki'ish echad b'leiv echad. We're like one. Because we're fundamentally connected. Like he says there, Av echad l'kolonu, we have one Father. And kulam asimas, and all of us are related to each other. And mi yodei gdulasan umalasan, who knows which is the greatest soul? We don't know. Every soul has its unique, indispensable role to play. Like musical notes in a cosmic symphony. Everyone necessary, and everyone complements the other. That's the power of this powerful day. The former chief rabbi of England, Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, tells a story that when he was a student in university, he wrote a paper for his doctorate. It was a paper on Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh B'Zeh, that all Jews are responsible for each other. And he explained it at length, a 90-page paper. Rabbi Fivers Vogel of London suggested he put the paper and send it into the Rebbe. He says, bother the Rebbe to read my paper. He says, the Rebbe wants to read it, he'll read it. He won't, he won't. Well, he sent it in, the Rebbe responded. One comment on top says, Iker chosim min ha-sefer. The main thing missing from this paper is no reference to Tanya Perek Lamed Beis, to chapter 32 in Tanya. So he said, for years I wondered. The paper was a paper on Nigla, a Talmudic understanding and Midrashic understanding where we derive the lesson of Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh B'Zeh, that we're all responsible. It was more of a much more legal and Talmudic exposition, not a Hasidic and not a spiritual one. So why would the Rebbe say Iker Chosim min ha-sefer, which means like the main punchline is missing? So he said, I want to repay a debt to the Rebbe. This was after Gimel Tammuz. And now I understand it. Because without Tanya, Perek Lamed Beis, you don't really understand how people can really be fully responsible for one another. Because at the end of the day, we're separate entities. And God created us that way. Ein partzafei and shenis, we have different faces. Ein deyasei and shenis, shaves. That we don't have similar opinions, different personalities. So how do you explain that type of unity? Only Tanya, because Tanya says we look at the soul. So the whole paper was a beautiful paper, but the fundamental question was not answered. That love, that unconditional love. And with that he said something interesting. He said he always wondered why the Rebbe sent shluchim to all the outskirts of the world to find one Jew to give him a matzah for Pesach, put on tefillin, light a candle. It seems like a waste of resources. What do you mean a waste? Not a waste. But it would seem wiser more businesslike, you go fishing where the fish are. The Jews are in London, the Jews are in Sao Paulo, the Jews are in New York, in Jerusalem, in Paris. That's where you send all your resources, to go find a Jew somewhere in a distant land, just to do one thing for one Jew. What was the logic? And he said, the answer is, based on Tanya chapter 32. After the Holocaust, when the Nazis hunted down Jews in hate with such passion, they would use a stethoscope to try to find Jews hiding in the walls. Can you imagine? Obsessed with Jews. If we will not hunt down Jews with love, with more passion than they hunted down Jews with hate, in a way they would have won. So the Rebbe felt that was the ultimate tikkun, the ultimate transformation of that negative hate. Every Jew, there's no such thing as, numbers. It's not a numbers game. One Jew. We can learn that from the haters, the beasts that hated even a single Jew. Every single Jew is part of the organism. Every single Jew is part of the musical composition. We would not be able to receive the Torah, it says in Medrash, unless every Jew is there. One Jew not there, it's like a letter in a Sefer Torah. One letter is missing. Even one letter is cracked, and the whole Sefer Torah cannot be used. Can you imagine? Out of 304,805 letters, one letter, a missing letter, a broken letter, that's the power of the individual. And therefore, the Rebbe spent all the resources to find that individual. That's how powerful it is. So here we stand in Rosh Chodesh Sivan, about in a few days from now, to receive the Torah anew. This year, we have to follow the guidelines, the medical guidelines, but we have Sinai at home, and we have Sinai in our hearts, and we have the love that we have for each other no matter where we are. Physical space does not disconnect us, God forbid. On the contrary, it connects us more than ever. And a Rebbe, a Neshama Klolis, is that connecting bond. We say a Rebbe is not just a leader, not just a mentor, not just a scholar. A Rebbe is a Neshama Klolis, a collective soul. That soul that sees the indispensable nature. Think of the conductor of a musical symphony. The conductor sees the value of each one and connects them all. Which is why it's so appropriate for Rosh Chodesh Sivan in preparation for our unity is to connect with the Rabbeim, starting from the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Chassidus Chabad, and all the 9 generations, the Rebbe Magid of Mezrich, the Alter Rebbe, Rebbe Shneur Zalman of Liadi, the Mittler Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, the Rebbe Marash, the Rebbe Rashab, the Frierdiker Rebbe, and our Rebbe, Der Hashvi, from the Alter Rebbe. Connecting with them is a way of connecting with each other in the fullest sense of the word. We connect to them through their Torah, through their teachings, through their songs, because the song captures a dimension that, coupled with their Torah, creates the indestructible, the unwavering bond that allows us to be the best we can be, the individual best we can be, but also the connection we have with everyone else. May Hashem bless us, using this special day, this unique event, to unite like never before, recognize the value each of us has and how we each complement the other, and be able to march into Matan Torah with that ultimate unity in the year 2020, Tavshin Pei, to be able to declare and say, this year there was a unity, a love, a connection like never before. In 3,332 years, since Matan Torah, there was never such an achdus. Precisely because we've been challenged in our outer lives, our bodies, our physical lives, the material that separates us is disrupted now, is upended. Great, the unbelievable opportunity to connect soulfully. Socially distant, physically distant, but soulfully connected and one more than ever. And Barcheinu Avinu Kolanu Ka'echad, we were told, the Rebbe said, the Tzemach Tzedek said, that Achdus, the unity among Jews, the unity among Chassidim, will lead them to Mashiach Tzidkenu.
Agora iniciaremos uma jornada pelas gerações do Chassidismo com o Rabino Simon Jacobson.
So let's begin our journey to the end of the 17th century. The end of the 17th century, the birth of the Baal Shem Tov, 1698. And the beginning of the 18th century. What was the world experiencing? It was the beginning of the modern age. The world we have today began to be determined and defined in that period. After the Renaissance and the so-called Enlightenment, which challenged long-held beliefs and systems and establishments, a new period opened up, free inquiry. And it changed much. And for Jews in particular, it has deep impact. Because the emancipation of the Jews now is a new modern world that they have to deal with. How do you deal with that? And it was especially dire time because it was just 50 years after Gzeres Tachvetat, Chomlensky, who led hordes of Cossacks, killing hundreds of thousands of Jews in European communities. It was 30 years after the fiasco, the tragedy of Shabtai Tzvi that picked up people's hopes and then shattered. The Jews were broken. Their spirits were demoralized. You can say it was the beginning of dichotomies. The dichotomy between God and this universe, between faith and reason, between science and religion. And for Jews, the dichotomy between academic Torah and passionate Judaism, between the body and soul, the neshama and the guf of Torah, between scholars and laymen. Many dichotomies were born in that period of time. And that's the landscape, that's the backdrop where the Baal Shem Tov enters. The Hebrew says, Magdim refu l'maka. Before the illness, he gives us the cure, and Chassidus was born. Chassidus was born, the Baal Shem Tov, 36 years, in the year 1734, the Baal Shem Tov comes on the scene, and what does he teach? He teaches there are no dichotomies. Hashem echad doesn't mean just one God, it means one reality. The divine is everywhere. Every fiber of existence, as the Alter Rebbe brings the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov right in the beginning of Shar Yechid V'Amunah, La'elam Hashem dvarchav nitzav b'shamayim, that the words of God are always and perpetually vivifying every detail, every iota of existence. It's concealed, but it's waiting to be released by us, because the concealment is only from our perspective. What is the consequences of that? There are no dichotomies. There was a school of thought that at one point said, you know what, we can't reconcile these two worlds, Judaism and the modern world, faith and modernity. And that school of thought claimed, in the words they used, a Jew at home, a goy in the street, compartmentalization. On the other extreme, there were those that said, fine, the ghetto walls are coming down, but we have to create our own blinders, because the hostile world is a threat. The Baal Shem Tov and Chassidus comes and teaches, no. The world is not a threat because the world is created by God. And when you're able to access and dig deeper, you will find godliness everywhere. And hence the Baal Shem Tov says, from everything that a person sees or hears, there's a lesson. Everything. Everything is divine providence. A leaf turning in the wind is divine providence. So there's no detail in life that is not subject to some divine plan. Famous story with Reb Chaim Rappaport, where the Baal Shem Tov had the simcha because the Chaim Rappaport took a drink of water. And he said, that water was waiting from the beginning of time for you to make a bracha on it. Imagine now, let's live with that in our own lives, that when you walk the streets, wherever you go, God leads your footsteps. And every interaction, every encounter could be that from the beginning of time was waiting for you, or I, or any one of us, to utilize for some higher purpose. How does that infuse our lives? That challenged, and that was countering the demoralization and the broken spirits of the Jews, because it invoked a deeper look at everything. Just as the Baal Shem Tov showed and revealed the divine within everything in existence, he also revealed the divine within every Jew. That no matter who you are and what your behavior looks like and what your external is like, you have a core that may not be obvious to the eye, but it carries potent, infinite energy. What we call etzem haneshama. What's etzem? Chassidus uses the word etzem and giluyim. Giluyim is expression, it's definitions, it's conscious experiences. Etzem we don't see, but it lies at the soul and heart. Yom Kippur, one Yom Kippur, the Baal Shem Tov and the students were studying. They were studying they were davening, Yom Kippur. And the Baal Shem Tov said that particular Yom Kippur, there was a decree in heaven that had to be abolished, so they were crying to no avail. A farm boy walks in, he sees everyone crying, everyone praying. Now he was ignorant, illiterate, he couldn't read Hebrew. He was a farm boy. But in his sincerity, he sees everyone crying. What did he know? The call of a rooster from the farm. So he called out, "Kukuri-koo, kukuri-koo, kukuri-koo." And with that, he pierced heaven. The Baal Shem Tov sensed it. That's a etzem. We all have our kukuri-koos, despite what our externals may look like. That's what the Baal Shem Tov revealed. And when you reveal the etzem, and here, let us refer to the quotes in the companion guide here. In the words of the Baal Shem Tov, a fundamental teaching that when you touch the core, you touch everything. If you touch someone's nose, you touch someone's mouth, you eat a piece of food, these are all localized, specific experiences. You touch the core, it's like someone touches the love of your child, that consumes all of you. I think of it in our contemporary terms. We go on Miftzah Tefillin or Miftzah Neshek. And you put up, many people say, the person is not an observant Jew. We're putting on Tefillin. What's his rest of his life look like? But a mitzvah is not just a mitzvah, and a Jew is not just a Jew. There's an etzem and a neshama, both the etzem in the mitzvah and the etzem in the Jew. And when you touch that, you touch his core. And that can ignite an entire revolution, a flame, a core pilot flame that will change this person's life. Maybe not immediately. That's what etzem is. Looking into the core of things, the Baal Shem Tov also taught us that we have to think mission-centric. Why are we here? And what most powerful statement. HaKadosh Baruch Hu schickt up an Neshama of der Welt. God sends a soul down to this world. Und lebt 70 oder 80 Jahr, lives 70 or 80 years. Was der Tachlis HaKavana von der Shlichus. The ultimate purpose of this mission is to tona Eden ateva, is to do a Jew a favor. In Gashmias bechlal und in Ruchnis befrat. In the material in general and specifically in the spiritual realm. The Rebbe calls this a Maimer Nifle, Vayeshev Tavshim Mem Zayin. A wondrous, an awesome teaching. Why? Because you can be a Shemer Torah mitzvahs. Quran, Tefillin, keep Shabbos, Kashrus, everything. But that's not why your neshama may have come down here. Once you're here, obviously you have to do all the Torah mitzvahs. Your neshama came down to do a favor. How do we live with these words? Very simple. We meet people all the time. It could be in a subway, it could be on a plane, it could be in the street, it could be a friend, it could be a stranger. This may be the person that you were sent to this world to help. It may not even be a person you like. Maybe a person that you may be turned off by. But this eliminates the whole idea of judgmentalism and condescension that is such a plague in our times, because that person may be why you are here, to do a favor. So the Baal Shem Tov created the revolution, to look at the world through a new prism, through a new lens, the lens of etzem, the lens of the core, that there's something going on beneath the surface. What you see is not what you get. And that should infuse us to look at life as a mission, to reveal the divine in every detail of our lives. And this would set the stage to all the next generations of Chassidus, which all came, spreading the wellsprings, as Mashiach told the Baal Shem Tov, that when your wellsprings will be spread to the farthest outskirts, that's when I will come. Because it's transforming the world and making it a world where there's a total fusion of the divine and existence without any separation. So now let's continue the journey into the books, the Sfarim, and the Neshama of the Maggid of Mezrich. So the Maggid assumes leadership a year after the Histalkus of the Baal Shem Tov in 1761, and it would span till 1772. And his times, of course, continued the events in the world as took place in the time of the Baal Shem Tov. What the Maggid did was further develop these ideas. Now remember, both the Maggid and the Baal Shem Tov taught their Torahs in very short, they're very brief. And they taught them orally. They were not printed. In the case of the Baal Shem Tov, they were collected by students over the years, and we have them today in the sefer called Keser Shem Tov and Savos HaRivosh. Case of the Magid, same, short Torahs said orally and documented by his students in, again, we have them collected in two Sfarim. One is called Likutei Amorim, or also called Magid Dvarav Yaakov, which is an acronym. Its last letters is the name of the Magid, Dov. And the second, Eir Torah. And he further developed these ideas, and of course inspiring even more people, and more people who would become leaders. And among his teachings, one of the things in the words of the Magid, going back to the companion guide, Asei l'chashtei chatzetzes, kesef. This is a verse in Baal Escha, which is a mitzvah, to craft, make trumpets, 2 silver trumpets. Says the Magid, in his novel interpretation, what's the word chatzetzes? It also consists of 2 words. Chetzi tzudas, 2 halves of an image. And who are the 2 halves? Hainu HaKadosh Baruch Hu u'Knesset Yisrael, God and the Jewish people. Hem kavyochel chetzi tzudas shemashlimim zeh zeh. They are 2 halves of one whole entity, and they complement each other. This is such a fundamental Torah that the Rebbe Rashab, in his magnum opus called Hemshech Ayin Beis, a third of it, 558 pages of Ayin Beis, comes to explain these few lines. And what is the Magid telling us? He's taken the Baal Shem Tov's teachings even further. It's not just there's divine in everything. We're partners with God. Kavyochel chetzi tzudas, like 2 halves of one whole. One is not complete without the other. And then he goes on to say that God then created the universe through tzimtzumim, concealment after concealment. But the partner, we, the second partner, are meant to now reverse the process. Not to be deceived by this concealment and see it for what it is, a challenge for us to find the divine that's concealed there. And we reverse the process and climb the ladder and retrace the steps and rejoin with God in a fully revealed fashion. And this, as I said, is explained for hundreds of pages in Ayin Beis. So check it out. The Magid further takes this even further. It's not just that we're partners. We actually have the power to control heaven itself. And he interprets, a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, chapter 2, that says, know that which is above you. And here's how the Magid interprets it. He reads it a bit differently. Da, shekol ma shalamayla. Everything that's above is hakol hu mimcha. It's all dependent on you. So we know what the Rambam says, that one action can tip the scale. But that's an action on earth. Here he's saying it affects all the heavens. A ripple effect, a butterfly effect, if you wish, that goes all the way to the highest levels. What kind of empowerment is that? You can imagine when Jews began to hear this in their circumstances, and with all the dichotomies that I described, and with all the demoralization, what kind of spirits it lifted up. The simcha, the joy, the passion, the love that this elicited from their neshamas. Now, Chassidus teaches us, beginning with the Baal Shem Tov and the Magid, that in addition to the teachings of the Rabbeim, there's also their songs. They both capture the souls of the Rabbeim in different ways. Friedrich Rebbe says something interesting. A Torah from a Rebbe touches Naran, Nefesh Ruach Neshama of the Rebbe. A Niggin from a Rebbe touches his Yechida. And indeed, the Baal Shem Tov and the Magid composed a Niggin called Gimel Tenuas, 3 movements. The first movement composed by the Baal Shem Tov, the second one by the Magid, and the third one by the Alter Rebbe. And indeed, the Baal Shem Tov himself was known to be a great menagan. He could sing, the Friedrich Rebbe writes, in many different ways, different voices. And he stirred souls. Hishtapchus hanefesh, the outpouring of souls. Gimel Tenuas.
Tiri
Continues. The journey into the Sforim and the soul of the Alter Rebbe, founder of Chassidus Chabad. Alter Rebbe assumed leadership and developed the teachings of Chassidus Chabad the year 1772, and his Nesius, his leadership, would span until 1812. And what did the Alter Rebbe offer us? What he did was, he developed a comprehensive blueprint, taking the short Teiros of the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid, turning them and codifying them into an approach of study, of prayer, of meditation, of character development, and applying these abstract concepts in a way that each of us can comprehend them. Chabad, Chochmah Bina Das. And apply them to our personal lives. And hence the Torah of the Alter Rebbe is far more expansive than the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid. And just a short overview of these Sforim. Of course, Sefer HaTanya, Torah Sheb'Ksav of Chassidus. This the Alter Rebbe himself wrote, as well as some other writings, Shulchan Aruch, Hilchos Talmud Torah. Many things were not published in the Alter Rebbe's lifetime, the Tanya was. But the bulk of the Chassidus of the Alter Rebbe were actually not written by the Alter Rebbe, they were written by Manichim. The Maimorim that he developed, that he said every Shabbos and Yom Tov and by Chasanis and so on, they were written by Manichim. Maniach is someone who commits to paper that which he heard. The Alter Rebbe had primarily 5 Manichim. His brother Mariel, Rabbi Yehuda Leib, his son the Mittler Rebbe, who would become the Mittler Rebbe, another son Rab Moshe, Rab Pinchas Reizes, and the Tzemach Tzedek, in the time when he was able to begin documenting and writing down these Maimorim. And this turned into an entire corpus of writings we call the Maimori Admur HaZoken. It consists of over 20 volumes covering the parshas, covering the holidays, as well as different occasions. And what do these teachings contain? They take Chassidus, and as I said, turn it into an intellectual and emotional process. Now, some may wonder, is this not somewhat compromising? The passion and the spark ignited by the Baal Shem Tov, the Etzem. As a matter of fact, some of the Alter Rebbe's colleagues criticized him for that. Some compared it to like a gun. It's loaded, you have everything there but the spark. Because you're turning Chassidus into another academic exercise. The whole point of the Baal Shem Tov was to touch the Etzem, the joy, the raw passion. That's even in a simple Jew. But in a very powerful Maimer, Yutes Kislev Podav Shalom Tafresh Pehei, the Frierdiker Rebbe, in the name of his father, the Rebbe Rashab, explains, are quite the contrary. To be able to take these fundamental principles that are coming from places that are undefined and inexpressible, the Etzem, and put that into words that we can all understand, requires going even deeper into the Etzem, deeper into the core teachings. To put it simply, when you love someone, when you love something, you don't want to just love it in the essence of your soul. You want to love it in every fiber of your being, in your mind, in your heart, in your thought, speech, and action. And you want to understand as much as you can the love of God that the Baal Shem Tov, the Maggid, taught, coming down into the specifics, that we can understand it with our rational minds, was not bringing it down into trying to understand God. On the contrary, the love is so deep that it could even permeate intelligence and emotions and our day-to-day thought, speech, and actions. And in the book of Tanya, the Sefer Tanya, Kadisha, and other Maimorim, the Alter Rebbe develops this into a full comprehensive system. What is the purpose of our existence, writes the Alter Rebbe? V'zeh kol ha'odam v'tachlis b'riyosei, u'briyas kol ha'elemis, elyenim v'tachtenim, liyas le'dira zu b'tachtenim. The Rebbe chose this as one of the Yud-Beis Psuk Memorei Chazal, because this captures the idea that it's not just enough to have a relationship with God, not just enough that the core soul is touched and has a kukuriku, but you have to come down into this world, this material world, as the Alter Rebbe elaborates in chapter 36 in Tanya, not in the spiritual worlds, in this material lowest of worlds, and transform it. Bringing the deepest levels of the divine in this world, and it's only in this world where we fulfill that desire. And this is not bringing it down, it's actually connecting it to the core essence, as the Alter Rebbe continues in one of the classics, in a Geras HaKedesh Siman Chaf, written just a few days before he passed away. That Muhusei v'atzmusei shel ha'maitzil baruch hu, shemitziusei hu matzmusei, the essence of God, the deepest essence of the divine itself. Shemitziusei hu matzmusei. Everything in existence is created by the source, by the creator. Only one thing is not created, the creator himself. So, from where does that existence come? It's called Mitziusi Matzmusei. It's self-generated. A reality that is real because it's real, not because someone put it here. So the Alter Rebbe continues. He's not an effect of any cause, God forbid, that put him here. God. And then this is the statement. That's why he has the power to create a yesh, like us, out of nowhere seemingly, that feels, that believes an entity like ourselves that feels self-contained. We also don't feel anyone created us. You may understand that we do, but we don't feel we're an extension of someone. We're self-contained. Maybe we're self-made even. This was a revolutionary statement that the Frierdiker Rebbe writes in the Likutei Diburim, that when the Chassidim heard this, they literally could not believe the radical chiddush this was. And they celebrated in the streets. Why? Because we always saw the ego as being the root of all evil. the selfishness that the ego leads to. The ability to trample and hurt others. So you have to sublime the ego. And here the Alter Rebbe goes and says the ego, the fact that we feel that we're self-made, actually is rooted in the divine essence itself. And the job and the mission is now to channel our egos to be channels of the divine ego. This is one of the biggest chidushim of the Alter Rebbe in Chassidus, because it teaches us that our individuality is not a contradiction to God. It just has to be directed to the right ends. The Yesh HaNivra becomes one with the Yesh HaMiti, a theme that you'll find very elaborated upon by the Rebbe, based on these teachings of the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe said that as much as you comprehend God, you can't comprehend Him as He is in His core essence, but a nigun can help you reach that. That's why the Alter Rebbe explained to his Chassidim that if you want to understand Tanya, you need to have a nigina, song. Pesach Tovshin Daled, the Friedrich Rebbe writes that. Famous when the Alter Rebbe went to Shklov, a city of great scholars, and he recognized that as much as he'll explain things and debate with them, they won't get it. So he decided to sing a song. In some places, in Purim Tavshin Chai says, the Rebbe says, the song was Tamuru Kitev Havaya Versuchten Zet, as the Eberstedt is good. Taste and see that God is good. And when he sang the song, because it came from the essence of his heart, they flocked after him. The power of a song. And one of the 10 songs of the Alter Rebbe is Keliata. Of our journey takes us into the Sfarim and the Neshama inscribed in these Sfarim of the Mittler Rebbe. The son of the Alter Rebbe assumes leadership in 1812, and his leadership would span till 1827. Now, what's unique about the Mittler Rebbe is that in the world of Sfarim, he actually played a role very different than his father and the Baal Shem Tov and Maggid as well. He was actually a publisher. He published his own works with introductions. He wrote them. He wrote all his own works. Obviously, there are also hanochas of the Maimorim and discourses that were delivered, but the primary are his own published works. And perhaps the reason for that is because he's known to be the Bina of Chassidus. The Alter Rebbe's Chochmah, a Nekudah. Relative to the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid, it's elaborate, but relative to the Mittler Rebbe, 5 pages of the Mittler Rebbe cover 1 page of the Alter Rebbe at times, and sometimes even more. So publishing seems to be an expression of Bina, of expansion. And just to give a quick list of the Sfarim he published. The Siddurim Dach, he took the Maimorim of the Alter Rebbe and organized them around Siddur and published that. Biyuri HaZoyar, took the Alter Rebbe's Maimorim on Zoyar and published that in a book. Imre Bina, Pirush HaMilas, Derech Chaim, Shari Eira, Ateres Reish, Shari Tshuva, Shari Amunah, Shari HaYichud, Pekeach Ivrim, Bad Kedesh. And of course, Teres Chaim, which is on Bereishis and Shmois, elaborate Maimorim. He also some Sifrodim on Nigla, as all the Rabbeim did. And interesting to note, many of his Sfarim are called Shar, gate. And in the Sfarim themselves, he divides it by gates. What does a gate remind you of? Nun Shari Bina, the 50 gates of understanding. So wherever you turn, you see the Mittler Rebbe, the focus on Bina, playing a very specific role in this journey of Chassidus, taking the Nekudas, the more concentrated points of the Alter Rebbe, and turning them into elaborate discussions. Literally sometimes spanning 50, 60 pages. There were Maimorim that Mittler Rebbe said that were hours long. There were times, Farbrengens on Shabbos, that he would say Maimorim to the point that some of the Chassidim and his own uncle, the Maril, told him, people can't handle it all. But it's a Gigosen Chassidus, basically. The Tzemach Tzaddik said that if you would cut my father-in-law, it was the Mittler Rebbe, blood wouldn't spurt. It would be Chassidus. That was his lifeblood. And this is not just incidental, it's part of the process. In the words of the Mittler Rebbe, in Shari Yichud, he says, Yesh maila bihizbonenus derech prat. Contemplation you can think about in general terms, a general idea. But then there is a quality and a virtue when it comes down into detail. Dafke. Mitzad eitzem akiruv gili eira leki benafshei yeser. Because when things are close to you, everything is in the details. It's not just a general picture. And he continues and says a very strong statement. Ki bizbonus derech klal, yuchel hatis esatzme. When you just get a general picture of things, you may have a certain sense, but you can make a mistake. You could deceive yourself in thinking. At shenidmale, you can deceive yourself into thinking ki me'eit korav elav adover. You think you got it already. Sometimes you hear someone speak. I got it. I don't need to hear more. Mashenkin is bonus derech prat. When it's a contemplation that goes into the details. Shekol prote hasoge, hasogis dover proti har yukve benafshei bebchinas hakiru b'yeser. Then it gets infused within you in a permanent way. It's the details. the lesson that we live with. In these living words of the Mittler Rebbe, God is in the details. Specifics. You'd think a detail is taking you away from the big picture. No. The big picture is really appreciated when you can understand every detail. Anything you really love, you want to know the details. You're not interested just in general. You want to know every detail because it touches the whole picture when you know those details. That's Bina. Chochmah is a general picture, a concentrated point, and Bina develops it further. The Mittler Rebbe, Kochzich, one of his big things was to create a communion among Chassidim, that they should talk to each other, they should verbring with each other. He led, the Alter Rebbe had established that he should be like a mashpia to Chassidim. So you see that emphasis, a camaraderie, understanding the power of friendship. In a Yechidus, the Mittler Rebbe told an individual, As einer redt mit dem anderen, binyani aveda, when one person speaks with another about service, serving God, issues around service, und sie lernen zusammen, and they study together, is das zwei nefesh alekis, two divine souls, if ein nefesh abamis, against one animal soul. The Rebbe asked, why is that the case? Two divine souls against two animal souls. The Rebbe's answer is fascinating, because ein odam chete v'leilei. Your animal soul doesn't care about someone else's animal soul. It's selfish. So you don't join. Divine souls are selfless. So when they come together, there's a synergy. The power of friendship, the power of two. A synergy where each of you complement each other. You get an opinion. You can give an objective opinion. So in addition to aseh l'charav, knei l'chachaver. This is how we live with these words. Chassid is coming down in the most practical way in our social connections. Having friends, having a support system. The Mittler Rebbe, translated in simple contemporary terms, was bringing Chassidus, was bringing a lakus down to that level of our social interactions and our friendships. The Mittler Rebbe has a fascinating mimer in Teres Chaim at the end of Bereshis. Talks about music. Actually, you need to be a musician and appreciate the logic of music there. He talks about 3 beats and 4 beats, all in the context that song, in the words of his father, the Alter Rebbe, is soul travel. If you want your neshama to travel, you need a song. A body travels with its legs, with a vehicle, but I want a neshama to travel. Kol bal yashir nechnosim b'shir v'yetzim b'shir. You need a song, a shir hamaylas, the Levim. To climb the 15 steps in the Beis HaMikdash, you need to compose a song. A song touches you and can transport you to another time and place. And indeed, the Mittler Rebbe established a choir, a kapella, that would compose and sing nigunim. So we'll sing the kapella.
Dum
Continues. Tzemach Tzedek, the Sforim and the Neshama of the Tzemach Tzedek, third Chabad Rebbe. So now that the Alter Rebbe and the Mittler Rebbe established the Chochmah Bina of Chassidus, which teaches us how you bring the core essence of the divine, the core essence of a Neshama, into Giluyim, into manifestation, all the way in Tachtenim, in this lowest of worlds. So it's a combination of the highest and the lowest. Comes the Tzemach Tzedek, who assumes leadership after the Histalkus of the Mittler Rebbe, 1827 to 1866. Tofresh Chavav. What did the Tzemach Tzedek contribute? The Tzemach Tzedek as Das of Chassidus, Chochmah Bina Das, of Das, what he did was gathered all the Maimorim of the Alter Rebbe, turned it into an organized library structure, annotated it, cross-referenced it. And above all, he put it in context of all the Torah, literally, of all pardes of Torah, Chumash, Torah Shebeksav, Torah Shebal Peh, Medrash, Zohar, Kisvei Arizal, Kabbalah. He connected all the Alter Rebbe's Torahs and showed it how it contributes and how it illuminates every other part of Torah. And this is in addition to the Maimorim that the Tzemach Tzedek himself wrote. So Tzemach Tzedek was a prolific writer, and his Maimorim, his Chassidus, you can say, breaks into four categories. One is the Hanochas that he wrote or edited of the Alter Rebbe, or edited other Hanochas that I mentioned earlier. And from that he gathered, from over 2,000 discourses, he gathered that became the sefer called Torah Eir and Likutei Torah, published by the Tzemach Tzedek, the select Maimorim of the Alter Rebbe. Then there were his own Maimorim. 3 were the Rishimas that he wrote. He wrote Sfarim. famous ones, Derech Mitzvah Sefer HaMitzvahs, explaining mitzvahs according to Chassidus. Sefer HaChira was philosophical essays dealing with the debates at the time with those of the Enlightenment. Rishimis on Tehillim, commentary on Tehillim, Chassidish commentary, and more. These are the Sforim, but they're not just Sforim as we know, these are lives. The soul of the Tzemach Tzedek. Just to give a quick example, there are two very classic discourses of the Tzemach Tzedek, one called Drush Gimel Minei Odam, one called Drush Gimel Shittas. These are principles of how to understand Seder Ishtalshelus, the cosmic order. And the ideas are scattered in many different discourses of the Alter Rebbe. Tzemach Tzedek gathers it all together, connects it and grounds it with the writings of the Arizal, and gives us an elaborate map. If you want to have a map of Seder Ishtalshelus, you look into these Maimorim. You want to have a map into the great Kabbalistic arguments about the most important element of Spheris, the interface between the divine and existence. And every interface needs to have some of one part and some of the other part. What represents the divine, what represents existence. So there are different opinions of the Kabbalists. Tzemach Tzedek meticulously explains each opinion and shows how different discourses of the Alter Rebbe lean toward one or opinion or another. So you have the context. One of the most powerful elements of applying Chassidus to life is in one of the most famous expressions. And we'll read it from a letter from the Frierdiker Rebbe. The Welt sagt, Bald Tzemach Tzedek omer le'echad ha'chsidim b'shah she'bnoi hoye b'sakon gdela. An individual came to the Tzemach Tzedek, his child was very ill. Danger, very great danger, grave danger. This is the Tzemach Tzedek's words. Awaken the power of trust in God. With pure faith. God will save your son. Spare your son. Thought helps. Trach gut wird sein gut. Think good and it will be good. And that's what happened. And the child was healed. Of course, we know this expression. The Rebbe uses it so often in letters and in answers. But it's not just a nice statement, have a nice attitude. It actually can change reality. So over a century before positive psychology would enter the mainstream, the Tzemach Tzedek is teaching this. Where does this come from in Chassidus? Because when you're connected to the soul and you're connected to God, you have resources that are far beyond your expectations. If you look at everything from surface level, yeah, someone's not well, someone's depressed, someone's suffering from this, someone's suffering from that. But when you dig deeper and you reveal the neshama, which is what Chassidus does, then your thinking good will actually actualize new potentials, new possibilities. In continuing in the same vein, in a letter, a powerful letter that the Tzemach Tzedek writes, he writes how our attitude can change our reality. You shouldn't talk about depressing thoughts. You have to always show and demonstrate joyous behavior, behavioral joy. As if you're actually actually happy. Even though you don't feel it. Even though you don't feel in your heart happy, act happy and you become happy. The Sefer Elias came and you'll end up being happy. What is the reason? Because according to your behavior and your actions, that a person actualizes, so actions cause feelings rather than the other way around. When you do it, then you'll begin to feel it. And then he continues in this letter a most powerful story, he relates. That the last night of the Alter Rebbe's life, Chavdala Tevis, it was Motzei Shabbos. And a few hours after Havdalah, we know the Alter Rebbe would be nostalgic. The Tzemach Tzedek was the Chazan for Maidiv that Shabbos. And Shabbos was ending. And he saw the matzav, he saw the situation with the Alter Rebbe. So when his davening, you can tell he was very depressed, he was very sad. He writes that my grandfather waited till I finished, and then called me over and said that his great teacher, the Maggid, teaches Kimara ha'odam lamayla, that God's face reflects our face. When you have a happy face below, God shines a happy countenance on you. When you have a sad face below, God shines a sad face. But he waited, he said. He waited till I finished. This is perhaps the last words uttered by the Alter Rebbe Ba'al Medain in this world. Because right after that would be the Histalkus. That's how important it was. So it's not just abstract ideas. It actually comes down to how we behave and how we look at things. That there is no such thing as looking negatively. So some people think it's not realistic. You're being naive. I'm a realist. It's depressing. No, it's not realistic. It's seeing more than you see. What does our naked eye see? We only see the here and now. What do we know is going on beneath the surface? Come the Rabbeim, comes the Tzemach Tzedek, the Alter Rebbe, and tells us there's much more going on beneath the surface. Access it, and it will change your life. I think the lesson of that is quite obvious in living the Torah of the Tzemach Tzedek. Nigun, song, does exactly that, which words can do. It touches us in a place that even if we may be down or feeling sad, it can take you to another place of joy. And indeed, the Tzemach Tzedek explains in a Maimer that the song is like a circle. It's infinite. When does a song end? You just stop it, but you can keep singing it in a circular way. It has no edges, it has no ends, because it touches the infinite, explains the Tzemach Tzedek. So the Tzemach Tzedek's nigun called Yemin Hashem. To leg 6 of the journey, the Rebbe Marash, the youngest son of the Tzemach Tzedek, assumes leadership. 1866, it spanned for 17 years till 1882 to Tafresh Mem Gimel, beginning Tafresh Chavov. The Rebbe Marash, his time was marked by a great increase in tragic pogroms that ravaged the Jewish communities. So if ever were needed the spiritually uplifting and the hope-filled teachings of Chassidus, it was at that point. And indeed, the Rebbe Marash, expanding upon the Tzemach Tzedek, his father, and the Rabbeim before him, took Chassidus to a new generation. He began developing it into discourses and ideas that far easier for contemporary people like ourselves to understand. Not that we can't understand the Tzemach Tzedek and the ones before, the Mittler Rebbe and the Alter Rebbe, but this is clearly, you see, far more structured. Indeed, he also introduced the concept of hemshechim. What's a hemshech? Until that point, every mimer that a Rebbe said was an individual mimer, said on a Shabbos, on a Yontif, had a beginning and an end. Some were longer, some were shorter. A hemshech is a series of maimorim that cover a central theme and could span for weeks and weeks, months and months, even years. Some go for a year, 2 years. Famous hemshechim of the Rebbe Marash, Mayim Rabim Tofresh Lamed Vov, 1876. V'kocha Tofresh Lamed Zayin, 1877. V'hechlim Tofresh Lamed Ches, 1878, and more. That allowed for a certain expansiveness, because you can take an idea and develop it over weeks, over months, over years. Rebbe Marash. The Rebbe categorized the Rebbe Marash with a very specific term, which helps us understand more of the neshama and the essence of the Rebbe Marash. Was 2 words, lechatchila riber, based on an expression. In the words of the Rebbe Marash, the Welt sagt, al mekennet darunter, darf men riber. The world says that if you can't go below, then you go above. Ich und ich halt. I say, I feel, I hold. As medaf lechatchila riber. We have to go initially, not only as a last resort. Initially, we begin from above. Medaf lechatchila nemen mit starkheit. You have to begin with strength. Nit nespol werden for kein Sach. Not to be affected or impacted by anything. Und durchführen das, was medaf. To fulfill the intended and respective mission. Und as man nimmt, sich helft der Eibester. And when you go with that approach, God helps. That's the full expression. The Friedrich Rebbe actually writes, in following up to these words, he says, this became a yesod etzli. This became a foundation in my life, the Friedrich Rebbe says. And when I was faced with detractors, with naysayers, with people who try to cool off my ideas, I remember these words of the Rebbe Marash. This takes Trachgut V'Zaingut to a whole other dimension. Think big. Don't look at it, okay, I'll make a plan. If it doesn't work, I'll make a bigger plan. No, go into the approach in entirely lechatchila riber dik way. It's a lesson in leadership. It's a lesson in building something. It's a lesson in success. Look at successful people. That's how they think. I don't know if they heard the Rebbe Marash, but he definitely infused the concept in this stratosphere, and therefore many people begin to think like that. But it's not just thinking, it's an attitude that can change a lot. We all have naysay. We all have people, you have an idea, you're inspired, you're excited, you're idealistic. Someone says, it's not going to work. You know, I'm sure you could always find in your Rolodex, contact list, what they call today, people, as soon as you're excited, they'll be the first to tell you why it's not going to work. That we tried it, the more things change, the more they stay the same. The cynicism, skepticism. The Rebbe writes in a note to someone that people who themselves are failures want everyone else to be a failure, so they shouldn't stand out. So lechatchila riber, an approach. Obviously, you have to make sure it's the right thing you're doing, but you go with that starkheit, you go with that confidence. You think big. In a maimer, a very famous, powerful maimer, called Mika Moicha Tofresh Chovtes, from the Rebbe Marash, he says something that Rebbe cites very often. Reading from the Rebbe Marash's words. Mitzias ha'elam v'chol ma shenivruhu, mitzias. Everything in creation actually exists. She'im nemesh hazeh rak ma shenidma lanu. If we think it's only an illusion, that existence is only illusion, im kei mao shekosa b'reishis bara. So what is the meaning of the pasuk that says God created heaven and earth? Haloyle nivra klal. It's only an illusion. Kim shenidma lanu. Nimsa shelo yashchar ve'enish. If existence is an illusion, there's no reward and punishment. V'lo yesh teira mitzvahs, there's no teira mitzvahs. And that is impossible. Shazeh efshar klal. We cannot say that. Ela iyinhu de be'emes mitzias elam hu mitzias. The truth is, existence is a mitzias. Now, many of us ask the question, what kind of mean? Who thinks the world is an illusion? We all think it's real. Someone insults you, you sure think it's real. But there were philosophers that actually said that maybe the entire world is an illusion, and any proof you bring is part of the illusion, so it's not necessarily a proof. Now, actually, Chassidus would perhaps agree with them, based on the principle that existence, as the Alter Rebbe brings in Shari Yechid V'Amunah, cited earlier, its only existence is because of the divine energy within it. It has no real substance. However, the Torah tells us that the world exists. That's the proof. Not because we see a world. Well, seeing is not necessarily believing. There are illusions that some of the Rebbe Marash brings. A magician has a sleight of hand. Maybe the world is a sleight of hand. But the Torah says so. So the entire existence of the world is a Torah world. Now this Maimer, the Rebbe Marash repeated 14 times in Hayem Yem. It says that the Rebbeim had Maimorim, they would repeat many times, L'zachich, l'tayir es ha'avir, to purify, to refine the environment. Perhaps the Rebbe Marash, seeing the rise of secularism, seeing the rise of the self-made man, of the fountainhead, of that type of arrogance, said this Maimorim so many times because he wanted to weaken that illusion that people think reality is real because I think it's real. No, it's real because God says it's real, because the Torah says it's real. Which is the lesson that complements L'Chatchila Riber. Many times we think, what are people going to say? What is the world going to say? The world has no value except because God gave it value, because he said, Bereshis bara Elokim. So it gives us a way of looking at the world. Yes, there's a world because God said so, but not because it has any power of its own. That's what this Maimer teaches us. It's an attitude. And you see indeed the Rabbeim, how they apply that in every situation, as the Frierdiker Rebbe said, not to be nispal from what others say. The world has no validity without the Torah. All it is a platform, a stage for us to express Torah and Yiddishkeit and Chassidus in this world. At the Sheva Brachas of the Rebbe Rashab, the Rebbe Marash called and announced that some of the singers who can sing a particular song, we don't know which song it was, should come together and sing together. But in order to keep them coordinated, he asked two of the Chassidim, who were major singers, to come up. He says, to come ebenuf, meaning to come up not on the stage, but to stand in a way that to lead the song, that it should be coordinated. So we'll now sing L'Chatchila Riber. That's the name the Rebbe gave to the song. It used to be called Ein Tzvei Drei Vier, L'Chatchila Riber, because the song itself captures this theme of think big, of looking at things from the top and not going from the bottom up. Journey into the Rebbe Rashab and his Sforim, son of the Rebbe Marash, assumes leadership in 1882, and this would enter and take us into the 20th century. This may be the most tumultuous period in history, including Jewish history. Everything would change in these years. The Russian Revolution, leading to World War I, World War II. Chabad, the Rebbe Rashab, was compelled to move from Lubavitch, which was the headquarters of Chabad for 102 years from the Mittler Rebbe's times, to move to Rostov because of the war. World War II, we know what that was about. Everything would change. And the Rebbe Rashab, in the spirit of his predecessors, took on the challenge and developed Chassidus in a completely new way. He's called the Rambam of Chassidus, like the Rambam who codified and took all the Chassidus, all the Torah, and turned it into sugyas, to organize structure. That's what the Rebbe Rashab did. Through his individual Maimorim, and particularly through his Hemshechim, and specifically the famous Hemshech Tofrei Samach Vov, beginning to be delivered in 1905, and Hemshech Hayim Beis begin the delivery in 1912. These are spanned for years and developed the ideas of Chassidus that our understanding of Chassidus today comes primarily through the way the Rebbe Rashab explains it in elaborate detail. And it could be this was countering the darkness that was beginning to consume the world and the Jewish nation as well. In the beginning of Samach Vov, the Rebbe Rashab begins discussing why do we exist, the purpose of existence, why were we created. He first cites the many different opinions, Kabbalists, the sages, and then says, but the ultimate reason is, Nesav HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God desired, Lias Leidira B'Tachtenim, to have a home in this lowest of worlds. She'ein ze mitzad eze hechrech v'tam, this is not to do anything that compelled, and no tam sichli, no logical reason. Ki im epnei shenesav v'kach shehu lamayla mitam v'das. That's what he desired. And he quotes this powerful statement from the Alter Rebbe, Kumash Omer Rabbeinu Zal, the Alter Rebbe, Alzeh, if a taiv ken kasha. On a desire, there's no question. Obviously, this is just a word we can use, kavyochel, desire, because it's the closest thing for us to understand something that is not bound to logic. Now, many people wonder what this means. Will God just have a desire out of the blue? This is a desire that transcends logic. Remember, there is no logic until God creates logic. This teaches us that existence itself is rooted not in a logical reason, which would mean some expression of the divine. It fills a need, God wants to be benevolent. God wants to express himself. He wants us to be able to receive his glory. These are all reasons, logical reasons. But the existence is grounded and rooted in the highest, deepest levels of the divine essence, going back to the etzem that the Baal Shem Tov first began teaching. And that etzem is dafke b'tachtenim. It's fulfilled dafke in this world and only in this world, not in the higher worlds. So this teaches us that when we're doing a small detail in this material world, it's not just a trivial matter. This detail is touching the taiva of the Eibishter himself, not bound. He didn't have to do it. It's not for a reason. It's not fulfilling a need. It's because that's what he wants. And we have the power to fulfill that for no particular reason and for no explanation. What we know is that's what he wants. We don't know why he wants it because there is no why. It's beyond the why. In preparing for the challenges and the tribulations the Jews would be going through in the next years, and we all know what happened in those years, 1920, what would lead to, Rebbe Rashab did something extremely revolutionary. He established a yeshiva, not that his father did not do, his grandfather didn't do, the Alter Rebbe, and he says that it is a gewalget. I went to the oil years and years because how could I do something my predecessors didn't do? But then he established in 1897 in Tafresh Nun Zayin, Temchet Mimim. And he explains why. He explains that this is essentially a training ground. It's not just to study Torah, that of course. Not just to bring up Yiras Shamayim, but a training ground to train a new army that would be spiritual soldiers that would go out in the front and fight the winds of assimilation, of apostasy, the winds that were going to consume the world in denying belief and denying God. All the forces we see today, that Rebbe Rashab, in his visionary way, prescient, he saw what was coming, and he established the yeshiva. Of course, then it was not yet easy to develop it, but the Frierdiker Rebbe and the Rebbe developed it into an army. Every Chabad house on earth is a product of this training ground that the Rebbe Rashab established at the end of the 19th century. And in the year Tafresh Samach Aleph Simchas Torah, this would be 1900, he said a classic talk to the students, to the yeshiva. He said, Kol ha'yetzel l'melchemes beis David. All those that go out in the war of the house of David. Case of get krisus l'ishte, as he explains, have to separate themselves from material commitments. They have to be completely dedicated to the cause. What is beis David? Is der Gilui from Mashiach ben David. Der Yefutzu meinesecha chutza. Beis David is Geula. Yefutzu meinesecha chutza, which would bring the Geula, as Mashiach said. That bring him bias a Mashiach. For das is der Beis David, der Gilui from Mashiach ben David. And with this he empowered not just that generation, generations to come. So when you think about it, as I said, the Chabad houses, wherever they are, whatever they're doing, with that attitude, are trained in this military academy, but it's a spiritual academy. That one that teaches us that we're here to transform the world, no matter how secular it is, to transform it into Adira B'Tachtenim. The Rebbe Rashab said, every door has a key, but then there's a master key that opens all doors. A nigun. The nigun of the Rebbe Rashab, nigun Achona.
da 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 da.
The journey into his Sfarim, his Neshama. The Frierdiker Rebbe assumed leadership from the Ben Yochid of the Rebbe Rashab, 1920, and that would span till 1950, till Tovshin Yud. The Frierdiker Rebbe's lifetime and his leadership, we all know, was not easy. It was marked by Mesidus Nefesh and by radical transitions. Whatever was happening in the Rebbe Rashab's times now came to fruition. 1920, the Bolshevik Revolution. And you can say it breaks into 3 decades, 3 stages, as the Rebbe explains. 1920 to 1930, Frierdiker Rebbe, most of those years was in Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union. The Bolsheviks did everything possible to eradicate Judaism. And the Frierdiker Rebbe stood up to the point that he was arrested in 1927 and miraculously released, miraculously. But this would change radically the life of Jews in Russia. And Frierdiker Rebbe was forced to leave. He didn't want to. The next decade, 1930 to 1940, he was in Warsaw in Poland, in Riga, Latvia. And this was, of course, the time when Nazism was coming to the fore. Whatever Stalin was, Yamach Shema, the Nazis were far worse. Or maybe they're comparable. And this was the Frierdiker Rebbe dealing with those challenges. And then had to leave a middle, almost the last ship out of Riga to America, and coming in 1940 to America. The first half of that decade was, of course, the decimation of our Jewish people in Europe. You can only imagine what the Frierdiker Rebbe went through. And the second half, from 1945 after the war, was beginning to rebuild Judaism, with everybody saying it's impossible, especially in America. Frierdiker Rebbe saying America is not different. We're going to rebuild Judaism here. But it wasn't just a rebuilding, it was reinvigorating a demoralized people. You can imagine what the mood was like in 1945. But the Frierdiker Rebbe, in that resolute will of a Rebbe, armed the arsenal of Chassidus. All this time, from 1920 to 1950, never stopped saying or teaching and delivering Chassidus. You would think we're under the gun, running for our lives. No. He delivered Maimorim and he wrote Maimorim. He wrote most of his own discourses. Some were memorized by Manichim, Chezrim, and then written down, but most he wrote. It's even hard to imagine. How was he writing under the gun? In years that were really horrible years. But he did. Because he knew that Chassidus is the antidote to all these difficulties. And he knew better than anyone that within every darkness lies the greatest light. And he had that attitude, and that's what his Chassidus taught. I want to read a mimer. This is, mind you, written in 1933, delivered in 1933, literally in the wake and the shadow of the fires that would consume Europe. The Frierdiker Rebbe writes, very abstract but very powerful statement. Mitziyuse gam shel haruchni, gam ken eine mitzadatzme. Context. We know nothing creates itself. Ein davar esa esatzme, everything has a source. A building has an architect, a song has a composer, a book has an author. A world like ours has a creator. So nothing is mitzadatzme. Everything has a source. He's saying ruchni is too. Not just physical matter, even sublime things, even ideas, even spiritual concepts, spiritual reality, spiritual realms, has a source. Ki'im mitzad ha'moked. Everything comes from its source. Aval kiyumei shel mitzias haruchni hu mitzadatzme. However, the value of a spiritual entity is it has its own inherent value. What does that mean? In the physical world, both its existence and its value is all from a source. It doesn't have anything of its own. In spiritual realm, its existence comes from a source, but its value does not. So the Frierdiker Rebbe explains, being that it's soul, it's sublime, and it doesn't have any substance of its own, therefore, that's its inherent value. Because the more you're mavatal it, and the Rebbe once said an expression, bittul kenish batul werden, you can destroy everything except something that's already self-effacing, selfless. Because the more you mavatal it, the stronger it becomes. So bittul, or ruchnius, because it recognizes its source, that itself gives it value. Gashmis does not recognize its source. See the far-reaching implications of that? The Rebbe has a footnote there, worth studying, very deep. He brings an example in Nigla, Machzis HaShekel. Not for now. But one has to wonder, why the Frierdiker Rebbe in these difficult times would say Maimorim like that? And perhaps we can say, because he, in seeing the evils that were emerging, which all come from the yesh of this world, the yeshus of this world, the darkness, that he felt it was important to go back into the engineering room and dissect the very engineering of what defines Gashmius in some way to weaken its hold. Obviously, what Nazi Europe did was not upheld by the Frierdiker Rebbe, meaning he did not stop it from happening. But still, he felt in some way he has to weaken its hold and give Ruchnius its real right. And when we look now, who prevailed, even though then it was so difficult, Chassidus prevailed, Torah prevailed. Now the Frierdiker Rebbe, in a similar way, interestingly, in the first discourse he ever delivered, his mimer, that he wrote and said, literally days after the Rebbe Rasha passed away, Reishis Goyim Amolik, the Rabbeim would say the same mimer they began with mimer, the last mimer that the Rebbe before him said. The Rebbe Rashab's last mimer was Reishis Goyim Amolik, Frierdiker Rebbe. And he talks here about a Rebbe. He says, Kedusha leizozim imkema. Holiness is permanent. It never leaves its place. Once it's there forever. Umokam ateirev ha'aveda shel tzaddik. The place where a tzaddik studied Torah and served God, the kol kelov, and all his utensils and all his furniture, if you wish, all his belongings, sheishtamish b'hem l'tzorchei aveda, that he used, meaning his table and his chairs and so on, kedushasei aleim, they always remain, the kedusha always remains, mechelke berure be'elam, because it's part of his mission to refine that part of the world. This is where the Rebbe says the expression that the Frierdiker Rebbe was 10 years in a location, 770. That location is forever changed. But then the Frierdiker Rebbe goes on and tells a story. He says, when I was 5 or 6 years old, around Tofresh Mem Heyor Memvov, I was in the room of Yechidus where my grandfather would have his personal library, his personal office. And my father, the Rebbe Rashab, after the Histalkus, the passing of the Rebbe Marash, came in, dressed with his gartel, stood at the table, his lips were whispering something, Ubocha Harbe. And he cried tremendously. Essentially, that he saw with his own eyes how the Rebbe's table and chair and the Rebbe lives on. You can imagine why he would say that in the first Maimer, because that would empower him and the Chassidim with what we've been talking about, the theme of this evening. What better expression of Hey Tevis is this? That the words and the Torah lives on because the neshama of the Rebbe is invested, infused, inscribed in these words, and they live on. And the Frierdiker Rebbe felt it necessary to make that statement. In Tovshin Mem Zayin, Parsha Vayikra, the year when this of Hey Tevis, 33 years ago, a few months after the verdict came out of Hey Tevis, the Rebbe says a very powerful Sikha Vayikra Tovshin Mem Zayin, and speaks and cites this entire discourse, this section of it rather, about the Nitzchias of Nisim, that what they represent is forever, but it's in our hands because we make them live on. Mazari b'chaim, afu b'chaim. So the living lesson of this to all of us is very straightforward. It's the Hey Tevis lesson. The Rebbe once said in the Fabringen, when the Frierdiker Rebbe was here physically, he controlled his destiny, and now we control his destiny. Because when we learn this for him, and we live with them, and they become living example for how we should live, that brings the Rebbe alive. And I don't want to repeat the second half of it. So the lesson is very clear, especially on this special day. The Frierdiker Rebbe, of course, had his special nigunim, and one that stood out was called the Beinani. So now let us connect to the nigun, which, as I said, is kulmas halev. It's the quill of the soul that touches us in ways that words cannot.
Mama.
come to the last leg of this glorious and revolutionary journey. The Rebbe, our Rebbe, assuming leadership in Tafshin Yud 1950. In the aftermath of World War II, the rebuilding of Yiddishkeit, and everything we know up till this very day. And the Rebbe, in his own inimitable style, took all the Chassidus of the 8 generations before, the Rebbe being the 9th generation from the Baal Shem Tov, the 7th generation from the Alter Rebbe, and turned it into a blueprint that we can use today to deal with every issue and challenge facing the Jewish people and the world, even till this very day in the 21st century. And how did the Rebbe do this? What did his Torah look like? Compared to all the other Rabbeim, it's incomparable. The volume, the sheer volume. As much as was written and developed by the previous Rebbes, the Rebbe took it to another level. Interestingly, most of the Rebbe's Torah was delivered orally, similar to the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid, and then somewhat the Alter Rebbe. However, was very different. It wasn't short. Literally thousands and thousands of hours, yielding tens and tens of thousands of pages. No exaggeration. In the long Farbrengens, starting from 1950, spanning till 1992. So just a short description of this work. These talks delivered by Farbrengens were written down by Manichim, as were done by the previous generations. But here, the job was much greater because so much of it was said and not written by the Rebbe. People who would commit it to paper. Some of it the Rebbe had edited, and they would be called Mugadik Sichas. They were random, they were sporadic. In 1987, Tavshim Mem Zayin, the Rebbe began editing them regularly, so they became what we call today the Sefer HaSichas Tavshim Mem Zayin, 2 volumes, Tavshim Mem Ches, all the way through Tavshim Nun Beis 1992. Edited Farbrengens, almost complete Farbrengens. There was also Maimorim the Rebbe delivered, official Maimorim, Divrei Elikim Chayim. Think of the name. The words of the living God, again, living words, not just words, living words, divine living words. And the Rebbe delivered Maimorim. Again, most were not edited, but some were, and they ultimately became a series called Sefer Maimorim Melukot, 6 volumes, and later turned into volumes that are in the order of the Parshas or the holidays, the edited ones. Then we have Likutei Sichos. What's Likutei Sichos? Likutei Sichos is, as its name implies, it's a likut, it's a selection. It's not a whole Farbrengen. It's a thought or a talk on a Rashi, on a Rambam, on a Zohar, an idea, on a holiday. So it's one section, and the Rebbe edited all the Likutei Sichos, which now consists of 39 volumes, edited talks. And this is not even counting the over 30 plus volumes of Igros Kodesh, the Rebbe's letters, in Hebrew and Yiddish, and there's still letters in the Rebbe in English that have not been published. And then there's, of course, things that Rebbe wrote himself. We have the Rishimis, manuscripts of the Rebbe that the Rebbe wrote from early years, long before he became Rebbe. We have, of course, Hayom Yom. We have the Haggadah Shel Pesach. And we have Tshuvas B'Yurim. These are answers the Rebbe answered to people who ask questions. This is just a little taste. So you could see the sheer volume. Giving us the tools, because that's what it comes down to, the tools, to deal with all the challenges of this complex world in which we live. Now, what is the theme of these teachings? Obviously, we don't have the scope to go over everything, but going back to the central theme of Chassidus, taking the etzem and bringing it into Giluyim all the way to the lowest levels. In simple English, taking the undefined, superconscious states that go all the way up to the essence of the divine itself, that's beyond words, beyond expression, beyond explanation and reason, and experience it in a very tangible and concrete way in this world, transforming this world into Adira B'Tachtein. The Rebbe took it to another dimension. Talking about Atzmus was not so common in the previous Rabbeim's teachings. By the Rebbe, he went into it ways that are unprecedented. Understanding Atzmus as beyond any questions. We can't ask questions beyond logic. there are profound sikhs of the Rebbe talking about Atzmus. And then the other extreme, taking those highest sublime levels and bringing it into practical. The Rebbe talks to children, the Miftsoyim, the Yud Beis Psukim, and of course, Shlichus itself. Now, a central theme in the Rebbe's teachings, because the Rebbe wanted to integrate it. Remember, this is the last leg of the journey, the leg that leads us to Mashiach. So integration is critical. It can't just be something that's being transmitted from above as a gift. We have to be part of the process, or else it's not internalized. A central theme in the Rebbe's talks that has to be internalized. The deepest levels, internalized. So in one of the powerful talks the Rebbe delivered when he turned 70 years old, Yud Aleph Nisan Tov Shin Lamed Beis, and he said that people are writing letters that he should retire. So the Rebbe, in his own unique and in a slightly humorous way, went the other extreme. Not only am I not retiring, we're just beginning. And I'm going to show you that the most important thing for a person in this world is to put in effort, not just to relax. So, let's read. Der Eberster hat eingestellt der Seder Habriya, dem Seder Habriya. God established the order of creation. As the Mensch soll seine Bedürfnisse nicht bekommen min amuchen. That a person's needs should not come ready, made. Nor dafke durch omel v'yagia, dafke through exertion and effort. Bigdeas durch dem soll sich aufheben zu der Madrege von a Mashpia. Because we want him to lift himself up to be a Mashpia, a giver. Umahava, a creator. Deime lebede. To be like the creator. Not a receiver, but a giver. Durch dem was der Mensch horvet und schafft bekeyachatzme. Through the fact that a person struggles and builds on his own. A central theme in the Rebbe's Farbrengens, every Farbrengen you see that message. Starting from the first official Farbrengen after the Maimer Basel Lagani, Tafshin Yud Aleph. The Rebbe said, don't deceive yourself in thinking I'm going to do the job for you. You have to do your effort, and then I will help you. This was central. But this isn't just a nice idea. It's fundamental to the internalization, because you cannot have godliness in our lives if it's given to you as a gift. Then it's not ours. We don't own it. What the Rebbe was doing with this was teaching us to be leaders, to be proactive. We're not bystanders or spectators. When I turned bar mitzvah in Tov Shin Lamed, Simchas Torah. So as a child in Crown Heights, I used to always be by the Rebbe's dancing Simchas Torah HaKofas under the tables with the children. Okay, now I'm turning bar mitzvah, now I'm an adult. I'm still not an adult, but I thought I was an adult then. And they put on this big hat on my head, and I was so proud. Come Simchas Torah, I'm not under a table. I stood with one of my uncles in the bleachers. That's where the adults stood. After the first HaKofa, the Rebbe turns to my father and says, where's your son? He would always dance with us down here. So my father proudly points to me standing in the bleachers. And the Rebbe smiles and says, no, erich shenech geworden as spectator. He also now became a spectator. So you can imagine, they made sure I went down to the floor. And all the Bochrim that year who heard that no longer stood in bleachers. But the Rebbe, the bleachers were spectators. We're not bystanders or spectators. We make things happen. We don't wait. This is the empowerment of the Rebbe to our generation to be leaders. Every shliach, and many on their natural leader will tell you, I'm not a natural leader. I don't know what I would have been. But the Rebbe, that's what he insisted. Everybody is a leader in their own way. You take the initiative. You don't wait. The best defense is offense. This dramatically affected our entire generation. Because who would we be without that attitude? And look what it accomplished. Leadership. Aveda b'keyach atzmei. And today, more than ever, after Gimel Thomas, 25 years, in a tragic way, it's so apparent. It is in our hands right now. Because kav yochel, so to speak, we can't depend on Giluyim from above. We hope we could. And we hope and pray that God should have Rachmanis, that Rebbe should have Rachmanis, and just lead us out of Golos. But as long as we're here, we were charged with a mission. We're not waiting on the sideline. You have to do what you can do. And this leads us to the most important of all, the actual mission of this generation, which the Rebbe stated right at the outset in his first official discourse, Basel Legani Tovshin Yud Aleph. one small segment. And this is what is demanded of every individual, kol echad ve'echad, or kol echad ve'achas, you can say, of us from the seventh generation of this journey of the Alter Rebbe, from the Alter Rebbe, the kol hashvi and chavivin, all sevens are precious. The ima yesh zeh she'anachnu b'dei hashvi hu lo yal pi b'chiroseinu v'lo yal yedei v'deseinu. Even though the mere fact that we're the seventh generation is not necessarily, well, it doesn't say not necessarily, it says it's not based on our choice and our service, on our effort. Ubekam inyonim efsher, and in many ways, or in several ways possibly, it's shalei kefirot seinenu. We don't even want it. Nevertheless, that's a fact. All sevens are precious. Shenimtsoyim anachnu b'ikvisa de Mashiach. We find ourselves now in the footsteps of Mashiach, b'siyuma de ikvisa, at the end of the process. Va'aveda, and what is our work? The work of the seventh generation is similar to the seventh generation of Moshe from Avram Avinu. Ligmer hamshoches hashchina, to finish the job of bringing the Shechina down below. And not just the Shechina, we talked about the highest levels. Leirak Shechina ki im iker Shechina, as the Rebbe explains in the Maimer, the highest levels before the Tzimtzum all the way to the Etzem. Ubetachtenim dafke, the two extremes, from the highest down below. That's our job, to finish the 7 generations from the Alter Rebbe, the 9 generations from the Baal Shem Tov, the 90 generations from Moshe Rabbeinu, and you could say the generations back from the beginning of time, when Adam and Chava were put into Gan Eden. We are now in the time we're finishing a process, a journey, a marathon that's been going for so many years. You can't take this lightly. This is the mission, and the mission continues to be part of this generation of ours. And we have a role to play. It's not just we're reading words. 40 years later, Chavches Nissen, Tafshin Nun Aleph. 40 years from Tafshin Yud Aleph. The famous emotional plea from the Rebbe. And these 3 lines capture it powerfully. Hadover hayechidi sheyechen lilases. The only thing I can do. This is after the Rebbe saying, I did everything I can all through these 40 years. Limsere in alechem, to give it over to you. Asu kol asher b'yicholtechem, do everything in your power. In yonim shem be'efen de'eres deteyu, things that are radical, that may be considered wild. Avol bekelim detikun, but they have to be presented in a civil way, in a way that people can receive them. Lahavi bepelas Mashiach tzedkenu teikuv from Yad Mamish, all underlined. To actually bring bepeil, teikuv from Yad Mamish Mashiach. Exactly what he said 40 years ago when we began the 7th generation, he said now 40 years later in this famous sikh. Purim Tov Shemem Zayin, interestingly, just a month or 2 after Hey Tevis, when the verdict was released, the Rebbe said basically the same idea in a long Fabring in Purim Tov Shemem Zayin. That it went over from the Nasi to you. The ultimate Aveda B'Koyach Atzmei. Of course we would not want it that way. The Rebbe says himself, it's not in our Bechira. It's not our Aveda. And it's not even our will. Who wants it? The Rebbe should take care of it. Why suddenly dropping a job on us? But whether we like it or not, this is the story. There's something we must do. So I would say, Hey Tevis, the holiday of Hey Tevis, the Eis Rotzen and Yem's Gula, today is probably more powerful than ever. When it happened in Tov Shemem Zayin, the Rebbe was a full glory, Nossi Begoli in every possible way. Today, that's concealed from us. And today, Hey Tevis reigns supreme, that a Rebbe lives on, his words live on, but with one condition, that we make it living, but we internalize it and we live with it. And Rahman al-Islam, when we don't, in a way, it adds to the concealment. So I want to just conclude with this. The Rebbe, the thousands of hours that he sat and he poured out his heart and soul, trying to reinknellen, trying to get the message across to us. I'm not going to be derogatory about who we are. The relentlessness, the passion, the stubbornness. He would not give up. no matter who he was dealing with. Thousands of hours. You could see it. I saw it live. You could see it in recordings. You could see it in the words. Many hours arguing with God. Everything that Rebbe poured out, the Mesiras Nefesh that he invested in reaching the end, yes, the end of the process, the Geula. That's what the Rebbe wanted. Anything less was not enough. So I would say that it would be a disgrace if we don't do our part. Because if we don't do it, Kav Yochel, the Rebbe said, this is our job. How could we let him down? I meet people. They say, yeah, your Rebbe had a nice dream. It was very idealistic. Now you're one of us. You're waiting. It hurts me so terribly. It's like when the anti-Semites say, Ayeh Elekechem, where's your God? We, Hey Tevis, today, have the responsibility to bring the Rabbeim alive through their words, through their teachings, by living it. And none of us can say we're too small. The Rebbe made it very clear. He negated every possibility. You could say, I didn't choose it. No one asked you. You didn't work for it. Again, no one asked you. You may not even want it. That's not the issue here. This is the job. Anyone that takes this somewhat seriously has to ask themselves, 25 years, what have we done? And where are we going? This is Hey Tevis living today. And that's why it was so important, that verdict, among many other reasons, to establish, even in a secular world, that a Rebbe lives on. He's not a private citizen. His books are not just books, they're lives. And the lives are in our hands, because the Rebbe belonged to Chassidim. So Chassidim, whether we like it or not, in a way control the Rebbe's destiny. So my question to myself and to all of us is, what are we going to do with this? And for this we were chosen. Ata v'chartanu.
Para dirigir umas palavras e mensagem em nome de todos os Shluchim de Anash, temos a honra de convidar o Rabino Shapsi Alpern.
Estamos reunidos por duas razões. Em primeiro lugar, como todos provavelmente já sabem, o dia de hoje, Rosh Chodesh Sivan, é um dia que simboliza e representa a união total do povo. Como a própria Torá conta, que nesta data chegaram no Sinai e de repente todos os verbos mudam para o singular, união total. A segunda razão, porque estamos querendo fazer, como se faz no mundo todo, eventos para comemorar os 70 anos do nosso Rebbe. Algo mais que eu queria acrescentar: hoje, dia 1º de um novo mês, o signo do mês são Gêmeos. E os livros explicam que Gêmeos é a ideia de união, porque são dois iguais, então como se fosse um só. Gêmeos também traz a mensagem de Achdut, de união. Eu resolvi pegar um livro das falas do Rebbe de exatamente 70 anos atrás. E, olhando no índice, eu achei exatamente um Fabrengen na data de hoje, Rosh Chodesh Sivan. No ano Tovshin Yud, 70 anos atrás. Neste Fabrengen, o assunto é um único assunto. Apareceu um senhor, um benfeitor de Chicago, chamado Joseph Robinson, e ele pagou o mortgage do prédio do 770. O Rebbe anterior deixou uma parte do pagamento por 10 anos sem acertar esse pagamento por razões dele, e veio essa pessoa e teve o zchut de totalmente pagar o mortgage, aquilo que faltava. O Rebbe fala sobre este homem de uma forma até carinhosa no meio do Fabrengen. O Rebbe fala, e Yossel está distribuindo mashke, l'chaim, para as pessoas do Fabrengen. Yossel, em vez de Yosef ou Joseph. O Fabrengen tem 7 páginas de texto, mas o próprio Rebbe deixou já corrigido 2/3 desse Fabrengen. E desta Fabrengen há algumas mensagens muito importantes para nós nos dias atuais. Mas antes eu quero contar uma coisa pessoal. No prédio onde a gente tem um apartamentozinho na Flórida para as férias, a vizinha, uma das vizinhas nossa, é a nora desse senhor Robinson, Dona Fritzi Robinson. Ela é uma pessoa não tão religiosa, mas moderna. E ela contou 2 coisas que eu preciso repetir. Uma, que existia na família cartas muito interessantes do Rebbe para o sogro dela, que nós ainda não conseguimos encontrar. Ela, quer dizer, não conseguiu encontrar para nós mostrar. E número 2, ela contou um costume muito interessante do sogro dela, esse homem que pagou o mortgage, que ele é um homem muito bem de vida, bastante corajoso, e Shabbat à tarde ele tinha um costume de ir nas lojas de departamentos ou supermercados e começava a gritar para as mulheres judias: hoje é Shabbat, é proibido fazer compras. E não tinha medo de ninguém, era muito conhecido, muito bem de vida. Praticamente sempre o dono da loja chamava a polícia, ele foi preso muitas vezes, mas quando viram quem é, soltaram ele em seguida na própria delegacia. Mas este era uma das campanhas que este homem inventou na vida. Muito bom. Voltando para o nosso assunto, nesse Fabrengen o Rebbe chama o 770 uma casa geral, uma casa para todo o povo de Israel. E o Rebbe frisa 2 coisas muito importantes para lembrar. O Rebbe fala que o Rebbe anterior, como o Rebbe hoje, não veio para receber dinheiro, veio para dar. E o Rebbe dá para a pessoa E além de dar condições para a pessoa, o Rebbe dá para cada um de nós koach, força para fazer as coisas boas e positivas. Então o Rebbe deu para esse senhor o mérito de pagar o mortgage, e assim ele dá para cada um de nós aquilo que nós necessitamos e a força para fazer e cumprir a vontade do Rebbe. Isto é muito importante lembrar, especialmente nos dias atuais, quando devemos procurar aumentar mais e mais coisas boas, que isso vai resolver o problema nosso e de toda a humanidade. Aliás, o Rebbe menciona no Fabrengen que esse homem Robinson teve mais um schut, mais um mérito. Ele pagou a primeira edição daquela famosa enciclopédia Sdei Chemed. Também ele que patrocinou a publicação. Então, alguém no Fabrengen falou para o Rebbe, então, o senhor não podia falar alguma coisa sobre o Sdei Chemed? O Rebbe falou para a pessoa, abre a página que quiser, eu falo. E assim aconteceu. Uma coisa muito bonita e dramática. De qualquer maneira, vamos lembrar as lições do dia da data, a ideia da união, e que o Rebbe veio para dar. O Rebbe continua dando e força para cumprir a vontade dele. E vamos lembrar algo muito mais ainda, algo muito mais importante perto do assunto nosso hoje em dia. Está escrito na Torá que nesta data, quando o povo chegou no Sinai, aos pés do Sinai, todas as doenças desapareceram, diz o Talmud. É um dia ligado com cura. Que seja assim para nós, para toda a humanidade, para todo o Brasil. Boas notícias.
Agora temos a honra de convidar o Rabino Simon Jacobson ao vivo, que responderá às perguntas interessadas dos ouvintes via chat, através do canal do YouTube.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Jacobson. I'm going to put you some questions, but we'll do one at a time. First question, I'll say it in Portuguese and then I'll repeat it in English. Well, I'll say it in English first. Someone asked a question that you spoke at the beginning, right before the Baal Shem Tov comes right after a sad period of the Chassidismo, when the world was decimated and the people were down. And he brought a false hope into the people until the Baal Shem Tov came along. And now we're also going through a very, very hard time with the pandemic. And everybody's speaking about Mashiach. The Rebbe taught us that this is all a thing about Mashiach coming. And so people want to know, how do we look at it different and how do we really, truly prepare ourselves for Mashiach? Alguém me escreveu que ele mencionou logo no início, poucos anos antes do Baal Shem Tov, tinha a história do Chassidismo, porque era depois dos massacres dos anos Tach Vetat, e trouxe uma esperança para as pessoas em termos de Mashiach, e a gente viu que foi o falso e logo em seguida veio o Baal Shem Tov. Então, como a gente vê isso hoje em dia, que nós estamos numa pandemia, num momento muito sério, e a gente só fala, os rabinos, em geral, fala sobre Mashiach, e o Rebbe ensinou que nós estamos na beira de receber Mashiach. Então, como a gente encara isso hoje em dia, ou a ideia do Mashiach e o Mashiach de verdade que está vindo?
So thank you. Hello, everyone. Regards from New York. I hope everybody's well and stays well. And Baruch Hashem, I hear from Rabbeinu Shulkrad, the Hatzlacha, the success, such Achdus Anresh Chedesh Sivan, which is a day of Ki'isha Echad B'Lev Echad. So let me answer the question. It's an excellent question. And let me just give a small example. You know, it's like somebody who is going on a date and he with another person, with a woman, they're dating once, twice, 3, 4, 5 times, and they start liking each other. But then after 10 dates, the woman says to him, no, you're not for me. And his heart is broken. And he comes back home and his parents say, so you want to go on a new person? He says, no, I've been disappointed and I can't do it anymore. I'm too hurt. We all know that the healthy approach is get over your hurt and do it the right way. The fact that Shabtai Tzvi and so many other unfortunate disappointments happen in history, and there were really tragic events, does not stop us, it does not contaminate the amunah that we have in the betochen, in ani mamin, that we believe in Bias HaMashiach. Because that is what God promised us, is the end of history. It's the result of all the Mesiras Nefesh, all the sacrifices and mitzvahs. We're talking about millions and billions of sacrifices that our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents did, that it's not for waste, God forbid, that it would come to the end of the story where we'll have the Geula, a Mashiach. The fact that there were disappointments does not make us stop giving up. What we learn from them is to do it the right way. When the Baal Shem Tov and then the Magid and then the Alter Rebbe and the Rabbeim afterwards were Megalech Chassidus, they learned from Shabtai Tzvi. You know what they learned? That you can't go for Mashiach because you're desperate. The Jews were desperate, so he took advantage. A false Mashiach, a Mashiach Sheker, took advantage of the oppression and the atzvus and the depression and the difficulties Jews were. When Chassidus was Nizgala, I want to say Lahavdil, I'll say Lahavdil, it was a very different approach. It wasn't just, we believe now Mashiach, a different person. It comes with Chassidus. It comes with learning. It comes with davening. It comes with nigina, singing, like we just all experienced. It comes with a pnimius, to make sure that it's not going to be the false thing. So there were Taka people, the basis of the hisnagdus, of the opposition was because they were cheshish. They were concerned. Maybe it's another Rachmana litzlan, another Shabtai Tzvi, or Jacob Frank, or others. But that's why Chassidus is so careful. And I can tell you from personal experience, and when we wrote the Sichos of the Rebbe, how careful that when you say something, you have to be said the right way, be built on Torah. Shabtai Tzvi just said things that was Hepech HaTorah. When you go into the area of Pnimis HaTorah, you have to be very careful. So Chassidus came to put a lot of safeguards to make sure that halacha is kept more than ever. Yiras Shamayim, bittul, it's not anything that is false. So this time we're doing it right, and we're relying on the Rabbeim and generations of Rabbeim, Alter Rebbe, who wrote not just Tanya, also wrote a Shulchan Aruch, to make sure that it's done al pi Torah halacha. So that is what we absolutely are following, and we're marching toward the Geula. As far as the pandemic goes, where we're now, look, we are always know we get closer to Mashiach. We're not going to take away and minimize from the grief and the tzad and the deaths that happened here. And yet, we know we're going to come through it, and we'll be stronger. We have to say that this is somewhat of a wake-up call to realize that the material world is not such a powerful world, and what we need is ruchnius. We need neshama. We need Torah. We need deeper things. Everyone, and I can speak in America for sure, I'm sure in Brazil, I'm sure everywhere in the world, there's a certain sense that the outer world that we're so reliant on, our summer plans, our vacations, our businesses, our theater, our entertainment, is it's optional. You don't have to be with it. But our love and our values and our Torah and our mitzvahs and God and the neshama things, that you cannot live without. So we have to say that whatever reason, we don't know the Eibishter's mysterious ways, that this is a step that hopefully will finally bring the final step of it will be that there'll be Leyosim Kol Machla, there'll be Basiresi Kol Machla, that will removal of all illnesses, including this coronavirus, and we will only have the strength we get from it, and we'll march to the Geula, the right Geula. And Adarab, if you ever see something done that's not a pitera, we know right away that's not the right way to do it. But we are not going to give up because there were some who distorted it or who hijacked it. And we should be zeicha immediately. This achdus that we have now should already be the tipping point of the Rebbe Eibishter having Rachmanas on us and finally bringing the Geula.
Okay, next question. Let me read it for you over here. I'm sorry. Vet Elter. Got to put on the glasses. Someone asked a question. To be a chassid of the Rebbe, is it necessary that we walk around like a chassid, dressed as a chassid? Do we have to keep our beards long? Especially we see now in the pandemic, we see now sometimes the mask doesn't cover the beard or whatever. Is the external levushim so important to be a chassid and connected to the Rebbe?
Okay, You have very good questions there. By the way, Rabbeinu Yossi, do they know that you and I were classmates back before the war?
Because I'm not on the same level. You're going to hurt yourself.
Nah, chaz v'shalom. What I hear about you, you're like one step below the... Okay, great question. It's an excellent question. Let me say the following. There's two sides to this. On one hand, one of the Rebbes, I think it was the Gera Rebbe, that he was being Mekarev. He brought closer one of his Chassidim who didn't have a beard. So one of the other Chassidim said, Rebbe, how are you being Mekarev a person without a beard? You have Chassidim with long beards and payas and everything. So the Rebbe responded, there's maybe the Beis Yisrael. He said, I'll say in Yiddish and then I'll translate. He said, Beser ha'id on abord v'abord on ha'id. Better a Jew without a beard than a beard without a Jew. What meant was that in Yiddishkeit, we don't only look externally, you look internally. There are many people with beards and yarmulkes and behave on the outside. Everything seems right. You scratch the surface and you see, unfortunately, I don't want to say anything negative, but you see things that are not exactly godly. You could eat kosher but not be kosher. You could keep Shabbos and not be Shabbosdik. So we always know Rachmana liba boy, the Eibishter wants your heart and soul. And there's very strong Asius words in the Haftarahs that we say before Tisha B'Av, and we said Rosh Chodesh, Shabbos Rosh Chodesh last few weeks ago, Rosh Chodesh Iyar, last month, that the Eibishter says, I don't want your lip service. I don't want your externals. I want your heart. If you're going to daven to me and you're going to bring karbonos, but you're not nice to the almona or to the yosem, to the widow or to the orphan, I don't need this. That's on one hand. So it's a very true. You can be a id, a chosid, and the outside is not the primary thing. The ik is the pnim, the inside. However, this is the second half of the coin. We do live in a world that we look at outsides. Even though they say you never judge a book by its cover, everybody judges a book by its cover. It's $1 billion industry. I'm in the book industry, I know. They spend money because people do look at packages. So how do you reconcile the two? You see in the Torah, for example, it says, Yefas Teir, Yefas Mara, that the Imois, our matriarchs, were beautiful. When you make a Sefer Torah, it should be a beautiful Sefer Torah, not just the inside, the letters, there's ink, a mezuzah in your door. You should have a beautiful home, also external beauty, because the Eibishter wanted both. He wanted the inside should be beautiful and the outside should be beautiful. And we see, like for example, when you send an astronaut into space, he has a uniform, which is necessary for his life. If he decides, you know what, I don't want to wear this uniform, it's too tight, or this detail or that detail, he can put himself at risk. So at the same time, there's also a chassidish levush and a garment. That's not the only thing. Obviously, it's inside, but it also expresses itself in the outside. There's a levush. Like, why do we get dressed up Shabbos? It says to wear new garments, clean garments, beautiful garments, because there's a way of also honoring and celebrating on the outside. So the answer is, it's a fusion and a combination of inner and outer. You know, the word ponim in Hebrew, interesting, means inside, pnimius, and ponim, outside. In the world, there's a concept that, you know, what you see is not what you get. It can have echad bepeh, echad belev. Someone says one thing, they smile to you, and then they, God forbid, stab you in the back. In Yiddishkeit, we want seamlessness. Teiche kibare. The inside should shine outside, the outside should shine inside. So each person in their level. I meet many people, their outside is not yet perfect, but that doesn't mean the inner is not great. So we want to have a combination. When you look at your children, you want them not just to be beautiful personalities, you also want them to dress clean and nice. So the levush, the chassidish levush, the Yiddish levush, has in it meaning, even though it's an external, but it's an external that celebrates and demonstrates the black and the white, which is not now to go into, but basically levushim have significance, but their significance goes hand in hand with what's going on inside.
Time now is coming in too many questions. Okay, I forgot to say it in Portuguese, the last question, but I'm going to say this one in English and then in Portuguese. How do we transmit to our children at ages of 10 and lower, on a children's level, Simon, on a children's level, about the whole situation. They're at home, they can't go out, they can't play, they can't see their friends in a school. How do we be able to, us, that also we have our doubts, how do we be able to transmit it? Let me just say it in Portuguese. A pergunta foi como a gente, como pais de filhos, consegue transmitir, responder e explicar a nossos filhos que estão em casa a quarentena, estudam em casa, não está vendo mais os amigos, etc. Não sai fora, não sai. Como a gente consegue isso, que isso é a vontade de Deus? That this is all the will of Hashem.
Okay. Obviously, it's a question we're all asking. So I want to, so one way to answer it, I'll tell
on
a
a
story.
children's level, to be able to tell it to children.
Yeah. I'm going to tell a story. It's a famous story that some of you may have heard. It's a story you could share with your children, or the children are listening. Hopefully they can understand. Stories with the two brothers. There was Rab Elimelech, and there was a Rab Elimelech Melezhensk, and Rab Zusha. They were brothers. Unfortunately, in those days, the poritz, the landowner, if he didn't like the Jews, he'd throw them into prison. So he threw them into prison. And one of them was very sad. He was very sad. Why? Because his brother says to him, "Why are you so sad?" He says, "Because it's already weeks that we're in prison and we can't make a bracha. He gave us food. We can't make a bracha. We can't make shahakal niya b'dvare." Why? Because in the cell was a bathroom. Remember, everything is in one room. And al piteda, you can't make a bracha in a bathroom. So his brother, Elimelech, tells Rab Zusha, he says to him, "But the same Eibishter that told us to make a bracha also told us that in a bathroom you don't make a bracha. So you'd be mekayim also a mitzvah. You're fulfilling a mitzvah. The mitzvah is not to make the bracha." So when Zusha heard that, or Rabbi Elimelech heard that, he began to dance. Why are you dancing? Such a simcha, and being mekayim the Eibishter's rotzen in an interesting way. He was so excited that he made everybody else start dancing. The whole prison, all the prisoners were dancing. They didn't know why they're dancing, the Jews, the non-Jews. The guard, who was a real Russia anti-Semite, came running and said to them, "Why are you dancing?" They said, "Because the Jew there is dancing." "Why is he dancing?" They say, "We don't really know, but it's connected something to the pail, the toilet there." So he ran in, he said, "Really? I'll show you." And he pulled out the toilet and he pulled out the pail just to show that the Jews shouldn't have what to dance about. He didn't know why. As soon as he pulled it all out, obviously Rab Zusha and Rab Elimelech could make a bracha. The story teaches us that Eibishter decides how he wants us to serve him. We don't know Hashem's mysterious ways. Why do we want to go to shul? Because we like shul, because there's a kiddush, because we can play, because we can daven. We go to shul because Eibishter wants us to go to shul. Why do we go to Beis Hamikdash? Why do you daven? Because Hashem wants. What happens if Hashem decides that he wants you now to be in an island? Nobody else is there. You're traveling somewhere and the plane has to make an emergency landing. You end up on an island on Shavuos. And there's no cheesecake, and there's no davening, and there's no minyan. What does a Jude say? Hashem, it's not my control. I didn't choose this. Hashem wants me to be on this island. Maybe there's something I have to accomplish here. You have to remember that Hashem runs the world. And there are times he wants you to be in a shul, and sometimes he wants you to be at home. The Rebbe gave us a directive that every man, woman, and child should go to shul Shavuos to hear Aseret Sadibros, the 10 Commandments. This year we cannot do that. Mitzvah Torah says so. Not because we're lazy, chas v'shalom, because we don't want to. We do want to. The Torah says, Pekuach Nefesh, when there's danger, and even a doubt, protect yourself, protect your family, protect others. That doesn't mean you can't do it. So either there'll be minyan when al piteda that you can make a halacha minyan, or even if not, I've been telling parents, very simple. Take around 11, 12 o'clock when in davening they would usually read the Aseret Sadibros, take out a chumash, sit with your children, and adarabah, and do it in a more powerful way and say, the Hashem wants us now to experience Matan Torah. And we're going to do it in a unique way. Make it into a whole party. Make it into a whole event. And say, that's how Hashem wants it. I think it's critical because in many ways, many people are appreciating what a shul, what davening is, more than ever, because when you don't have it in the regular way, you start digging deeper and looking for a new way to say it. If I have time, I'd add another story. May I, Rabbi?
Yeah.
A story that happened with me, with a Rebbe. It was Tafshin Nun, 1990 or 1989. It was Rosh Hashanah. My father that year, Olav Shalom, had a mini stroke. A stroke. He ended up in the hospital before Rosh Hashanah and stayed till after Yom Kippur. So he was there for a good 2 weeks. Erev Yom Kippur, the Rebbe used to give lekach to everybody, the honey cake, for a sweet new year, Shana Teva Masuka. In that year, those years, the Rebbe wasn't giving everybody, only to certain individuals. I get a phone call from the Maskiris, Rabbi Groner, Olav Shalom, who was taken from us in this Magefa. And he said to me, the Rebbe wants you to come to get lekach for your father. I run right over to 770. I go by in Gan Eden Atachten, right by the Rebbe's door. The Rebbe gives me, I think it was 2 pieces of cake, honey cake. Said to me, das ist für ein Taten, this is for your father. Tell him he should have a gesunte und a gebenchte und gesunte Jahr, a blessed and healthy year. And then the Rebbe smiled, and this is the words he told me. He said, tell your father, as et verendigen, sag dem Taten, as et verendigen sein Schliches, wird mit dem geschickt, wird man ihm von dort nach Reis lassen. Tell your father that when he'll finish the mission for which he was sent there to the hospital, they will release him. I ran right away with the cake to the hospital. My mother was there with my father, and I told my father, I gave him the cake, I told him everything. My mother started running around doing miftzoyim, talking to the doctors and the nurses. My father called her back and said, look, it's not your shlichus. You're only my wife. You're my guest here. My shlichus. And the Rebbe, he did what he did. He spoke to that. I'm not sure exactly what he did, but he was mekayim his shlichus as best as his ability. Just to show you how serious this was, it wasn't a joke. The Rebbe sent Rabbi Chadakov, the Rebbe's chief of staff, his head secretary. The day after Yom Kippur, he shows up at the hospital. He wasn't well. He was already an older man. But he came. He says to my father, the Rebbe wants to know, did you finish your shlichus yet? So they can release you. Now tell me, think about this. Who goes to a hospital for fun? Nobody goes to hospitals for fun. You go to hospital because you have no choice. Because God forbid, there's danger, and the hospital is the only place that can help you. And you want to get out of there as soon as possible. The Rebbe, however, looks through the eyes of a Rebbe, and he teaches us. There's no such thing that you're here by accident. There's no such thing you just fell in here because you were sick. The Eibishter needed you to do something in this place. So therefore, Rahman al-Islam, you were led here in not a positive way. It was a stroke. Nobody wanted the stroke. But the Eibishter wanted you in the hospital, and you need to do something here. And when you finish, the Eibishter will release you and you will heal you. It's an unbelievable way of looking at life. Even individually, before this pandemic, before this whole lockdown, that we sometimes end up in a place we don't want to be. But when you say to yourself as a chassid, Ma'ashem mitzadi gover kenanu, God leads the footsteps of a person. You're here because the Eibishter wants you to be here. It could be a place you didn't want, but the Eibishter wants. And you turn it into a mitzvah. You say a good word to somebody. You may have gone for other reasons. There's always a deeper reason, a deeper choreography, a narrative that we don't always understand. So now when collectively we are told you have to be at home, so that doesn't mean, that's not a punishment. It means it's an opportunity to fulfill a shlichus perhaps that we haven't done before. I'm not explaining why God did it. We all wish it was done in a nicer and more pleasant and not threatening, frightening way. But the fact is now that Mitzias is, I just saw from the Rebbe Rashab, he says, on Hashgacha Pratis, you don't ask farvos. You don't ask why. We don't know why. But you ask Salidvos. For what reason? Not why God did it. We don't know God's plans. But what are you going to do about it? This is something we learned from the Rabbeim, the Rebbe. This was like a ikar of ikrim, a fundamental principle. And really can change your whole way of looking at life. So perhaps this is an opportunity to teach ourselves and our children that wherever we are, this is where Hashem wants you to be. How are we going to turn this into Kiddush Hashem, into sanctifying God's name, into a mitzvah, a good deed, be more pnimiusdik, be more internal, less mitzvah sanoshim ulamod, less mechanical, less robotic, more loving, closer to each other, parents and children. I mean, there are so many opportunities. If you plow your mind, instead of saying, why is it so bad? You say, no, Why does Hashem want me to be here? What am I going to do about it? That's the attitude. And it's something, an opportunity to teach our children now, which will help them for the rest of their lives. Because wherever they go to, we're always going to have situations where you're going to say, why am I here? The answer is because the Eibishter wants you to do something that only you can do right now in this given situation.
Even though Shliach Rabbi Goldman asked me to translate into Portuguese the story that you had with your father, I think we're gonna, if I do it now, we're gonna start losing the time and people are gonna go off. I'm gonna do two questions into one, just to finish up this question, because there was another question that said, someone asked, why this, where you just explained, why now? Why Dafka now? What's the point now? At this moment, like, what is the next step? Like, what is the step? And a pergunta que foi, por que justo agora, na nossa geração, in our generation? And the next question is, with all this happening and not seeing the Rebbe physically for over 25 years, and on the time that we really need the Rebbe to feel it, how can we identify and connect ourselves in a bitteldik way, like you spoke before about bittel, completely to the Rebbe? So why now? A pergunta é por que justo agora na nossa geração? E uma outra pergunta por que como uma pessoa nesses momentos consegue se ligar ao Rebbe e ter bittel completamente para o Rebbe?
Just let me clarify the second question, how this should help us with bittel to the Rebbe?
No, how do in our generation, that after more than 25 years after Gimel Tammuz, how do we come be mekusha to the Rebbe, connected to the Rebbe, and have a bittel completely to the Rebbe?
Okay, let's deal with the first question. I'm in the same place where all of you are, which means I don't have answers to all the questions. The Rebbe once wrote, I said before that Hashgacha Pratis, there's no farvos, we don't ask. The Rebbe once wrote to a doctor who asked about the Holocaust, why did it happen? And the Rebbe answered, the Eibishter wanted us to know why. And it was important for Avodas Hashem, we would know why. We have to ask not why, but what are we going to do about it? So I can't answer, number one, I don't think anybody could answer why the Eibishter did this altogether. And even why now, yes, we can speculate. I'll give you a theory if you wish. But I just want to make sure that you know that that I'm not a prophet, I'm not the son of a prophet, and I did not hear this in heaven. And I'm just saying, based on what I learned from the Rebbe, how we apply, how do we learn from events that happen? Because the Rambam does say that when a catastrophe happens, we have to take lessons into our heart and soul, introspection, soul searching, what we should do about it. So I would say the following, and this I'm speaking now as a chassid, a shtickl hergish, speaking from my heart right now. Maybe it's connected to the second question. Being that nothing happens by accident, and looking around at the world, the Rebbe did say 29 years ago that the Rebbe said, the Welt is great, the world is ready. Tut alles was ihr kennt, do whatever you can to bring the Gul. 29 years, we're talking now, Tovshin Nun Aleph, the Rebbe said that. Okay. Yes, 3 years later would be Tovshin Nun Daled, would be Gimel Tammuz, 25 years from then. 4 years later, 25, we're going into 26 years already. So when you look at the world around us, around 3 months ago, 4 months ago, before all this happened, where was the world standing? It was a very successful world. Obviously, people individually had their challenges, but prosperity, economy, the stock market, there's a lot of opportunities. For the Jewish people, we had Pesach plans coming. I was coming to Brazil, as many of you may know, a week before Pesach, to have a beautiful event. We all had plans, good plans, holy plans, Pesach, as I said. We all had plans. The Ilam Hazeh was doing very well. Like someone told me the other day, he said to me, we were in control. I thought I was in control of my life. Suddenly, like this, the Eibishter sends a microbe, something so microscopic, no one even can see it. It's like the bug, the mosquito that went into Titus's ear. Titus said, "You're big God. Where does he exist? On earth, on land, and sea? I'll fight your God." And Hashem sent a little mosquito into his ear, and it destroyed his life. Titus of Rome. The Eibishter sent a microbe, and suddenly the whole world is not in control. Not our businesses, not our plans, not our schedules. Ask anybody, what's going to be in 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks? Most people, if they're honest, they'll say, I have no clue. We're not in control. All our plans. I live in New York. You know what New York looks like? It's a ghost town. It's a ghost town. No cafes, no restaurants, no theater, no museums, no sports. People are not going to work. It's a ghost town. The big Manhattan, New York City. Hoo-ha, elam hazeh. We all wish it was done in a good way. There's no death and grief. But suddenly a mysterious thing came and the world stopped. So if you're a chassid, if you're an Eid, you say, what is Hashem saying? You know what Hashem is saying, perhaps? You know, you thought you were on top of the world. You thought you were in control. You think elam hazeh is more important than elam haba, that the material world is more important than spirituality. And you know what? You suddenly realize the physical world and all your plans and schedules and control, your security blankets, your comfort zones have been disrupted. So some people are just complaining and saying, oh, when is this nightmare going to end? But a Jew and a chassid asks, you know, this is a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call that elam hazeh is only a stepping stone to make a dira b'tachtenim. And now we have an opportunity to reach more people than we could ever reach. I can tell you from my work, I've not been stopping. I'm doing Zoom and classes, more receptivity than my entire life. People are open. People who are, I'm the guy that ran a hedge fund. He used to come to my classes. He told me, I don't have time. I'm busy. I'll come after I retire. Now he's calling me every second day. He says, when's your next class? He says, because you need in their nourishment. So the positive side is that there's an opportunity here to wake up the world and make a pandemic of goodness and kindness, in the Rebbe's words. Goodness and kindness, of tzedek and yesher, and for Eden to become much more connected, more Avos Yisrael, Nachdus Yisrael. We took our souls for granted, let's be honest. We do mitzvahs mechanically. Now you have to do it deliberately. You have to think about it a little more. So again, I'm not explaining why God did it. But if you're asking why now, maybe this is the ultimate wake-up call. Now I'll add one more thing as a chassid, and this comes to the bittul, to the Rebbe, the second question. It's 29 years when the Rebbe said, Ich hab alles getan. I did everything I can, do whatever you can. And I'm speaking now, I apologize if this offends anybody, but I'm speaking to myself as well. So I say to myself, 29 years have passed. We enter now the 30th year since the Rebbe said those words. A Rebbe says words, it's not stam gesagt. It's a tzaddik. Shechina medaberes meter greine. The Shechina, God is speaking through him. He said very strong, tut alles was ihr kennt. Do everything you can. So I look at myself and I say, so what did I do exactly? What did I do in the last 30 years? So yes, I wrote a book called Torah Meaningful Life. I gave many classes. I've written. I can't say I did nothing. But did the Geula come? Did we achieve the goal? No. That means we didn't do enough. And I know in my heart that I definitely did not do enough. So I'm saying to myself, maybe after 30 years, 29 years, the Eibishter in heaven, the Rebbe with the Eibishter, says, you know what? I told you the world is ready. So far you haven't taken advantage of that. Now I'm going to show you the world is completely receptive. Now, Imlay Achshav Emasai. You're asking me, if not now, when? What bigger wake-up call is going to happen in our lifetime than this? Only Mashiach can be bigger than this. Everyone, 7.5 billion people on this earth have been affected by this. And we don't even know the longer-term exponential impact. Imlay Achshav Emasai, not now, when? So you talk about bittul, the Rebbe's words still ring true. As long as the Geula is not here, the Rebbe's words on Chof Ches Nissen, Tov Shin Nun Aleph, and Purim Tov Shin Mem Zayin, and Yud Shvat Tov Shin Yud Aleph, you could throw it all in. Deir Hashvi, that this will be the day. We have many questions. You could say, why didn't it come till now? What did the Rebbe mean? What does Deir Hashvi mean? When is it? These are all nice questions. Tapara de Placha means action. What are you and I going to do about it? Imlay Achshav Emasai. If this wake-up call is not going to get us going, I don't know. I don't want to look back on 2020, Tavshin Pei, and stand before the Rebbe and say, the Rebbe said, so what did you do in the months from Purim to Shavuos Tavshin Pei, when this whole world was disrupted? I think we all have to look inside our hearts and souls and be able to say we did something. Now, I think this gathering is something, but I think that we have to go more and more, because Imlay Achshav Emasai. You want bittul to the Rebbe? Bittul means fulfilling what the Rebbe asked us to do and putting everything aside And like they say about insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. We have to do something different. And I say different, chas v'shalom, not waver from derech yeshara of Torah mitzvahs, lilmud in Yoni Gula Mashiach. I don't mean something, we don't need new mitzvahs. We don't need new Torah, God forbid. What we need is a new initiatives, a new way, a new echus, a new quality, reaching more people than ever. Today, look at technology, what it's doing. You can reach millions, billions of people. We just have to put our heads together. The last words of the Rebbe in Chav Ches Nisim was what? Should be 1, 2 or 3 of you that will strategize. What to do and how to do it. So to me, the bittul of the Rebbe is fulfilling the Rebbe's marching orders, the last ones he gave us. We do mivtzayim, we do shlichus, but the last ones, to take the entire world and bring them the message of geula, of goodness and kindness. That's what the Rebbe said to CNN. They asked him, what is the Rebbe's message to the world? The Sheikh is on his way, increase in acts of goodness and kindness, and will speed his coming. To make a pandemic of goodness and kindness. This is my hergish. Again, I'm sure other people may have other opinions or thoughts, but I try to answer both questions in one. This is what I believe is why it's happening now and what we need to do about it.
I want to thank you so much. I want to just tell you, people have been listening for 4 hours now straight, from 10, I'm sorry, 3 hours. People are 3 hours mamash listening. Kol hakavod. Sei gesund. Have a good yontif, and thank you really so much.
A good yontif to all of you. Kabbalah satere besimcha bepnimis.
Amém. Danny.
Assistiremos agora vídeo com uma Freile Henigun, cantado no dia 11 de Nissan de 1972, quando o Rebbe concluiu seus 70 anos de vida. Gostaria de agradecer a todos pela participação desse mega evento e que a nossa união possa realmente trazer e apressar a vinda de Mashiach, que é o propósito e todo o legado que o Rebbe nos instruiu e nos deixou para que assim fizéssemos, que esta é a sua vontade. Que realmente tenhamos um bom Yom Tov feliz a todos e que possamos receber e escutar os 10 mandamentos do próprio Rei Mashiach, em Beit HaMikdash HaShlishi, com a revelação do nosso Rebbe nos guiando. Amém, que assim seja.